It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. We're back, Bill. Did you have a good Christmas break?
Yeah, it was busy. There was lots of stuff. Unfortunately, my brother and sister-in-law are headed home this morning. They're actually headed out to the airport as we speak. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but they're headed back home. But it was nice to have them in town for the past week. So that was really cool. Went out and we did dinner last night at the Range, the steak restaurant downtown, which is really cool.
I've never eaten there.
I hadn't been there before. Yeah, it was really good.
One of the few restaurants left open downtown.
Yes, yeah. And the thing is, we were downtown, and it was easy because there weren't a lot of people down there. There wasn't a lot of traffic. If it was like this,
not
most
a good
times,
sign.
Yeah,
Mikey.
no, it really wasn't. But downtown itself was lovely for us when we went down there and what we were able to do, and valet parking and everything else. And it was fantastic. It was a great evening, and enjoyed it. It was kind of the goodbye for my brother and sister-in-law leaving, but it's nice, and it's the only time in which the four of us, we've carved this time out kind of as an annual thing, because the only time the four of us actually get outside of the rest of the family dynamic, and we really get a chance to just connect as the four of us, which is really cool. So that's been kind of fun.
What's your brother like?
I don't know, he's like me, but he's wired a little bit differently. He's not quite as he's not as loud as I am. He's much better at planning.
You claimed that you planted your flag in the family as the loud.
Oh yes, yeah. I'm the loud one that causes all the problems, and he's much more he's like an Excel spreadsheet genius, and he's really good at getting things task manager style things done, and making sure that things get from A to B to C always on schedule and on time. And I'm more of the person that's like, let's see what happens. So,
by the way, speaking of Excel spreadsheet geniuses, have you seen these like competitions they now have?
No.
Where you like program formulas in Excel and you can win like big prizes.
Really?
And they have competitions and all that. Oh yeah.
You should try that.
It's like a competitive thing.
Good at that. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of funny. So yeah, but again, the weird part is that both he and my sister-in-law are also in radio. So he does radio, and he helps set up a lot of the live events and big, huge concerts for Odyssey.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, that's what his job is. So he's like the number 2 guy in their live, department as far as executing.
You were in radio from like the get-go.
Yeah, but he started
haven't
earlier.
had another job.
Yeah, no.
Who led that effort in the field?
I have no idea. Neither one of my parents were either in radio, but radio was a constant in our household. I mean, it was always on, and it was always with us. And I think my brother and I just fell in love with the medium, both for different reasons, and fell in love with music. And it's weird that both of us, and the thing is, I started when I was 18, but he started when he was 16. He had to get a permit to work for what was at the time 96.5 The Peak, the alternative station that was started by Ray Skibitsky.
Are they not around
here
anymore?
in town? No, it's now a Spanish station. Yeah,
okay.
It's now Spanish, but he was 16 at the time and had to get a work release in order to work for him, and that's the only thing that he's ever done. But yeah, now they work out of Seattle, and then my sister-in-law used to work for Odyssey and is now working with AEG, the concert promoter, doing that. And that was fun because in the team that we're talking about, she's talking about some concerts she knows, and she says the EDM stuff sells really well, but she has no idea how to market it or anything else. That's one part of the team that she works with. And she says that she's in these things, that these group emails, and the posters will go by for the events. And she says the EDM posters go by, and she goes, I have no idea what they're even advertising. She goes, I don't know who the bands are. I don't know who's performing. I don't know why anybody would look at the poster. She said it's one of those things that unless you like EDM, you would have no idea what is going on with the poster. And sometimes she'll have to, when they're working on proposals and things and different concerts, and booking a lot of the clubs and larger venues, she'll have to reach out to the guy and go, okay, explain this band to me. what am I trying to sell here?
When I talk to you
yeah, exactly. Which is kind of fun. So it was neat.
AEG, that's the Anschutz Entertainment Group.
Yeah, it is.
That's I've always found that very eclectic.
Yeah.
With the family, because they're a conservative Christian family.
Oh, yeah.
And
but
yet
they promote everything.
Active in all of these entertainment fields.
So it was kind of fun. And I have no idea how both my brother and I ended up in radio. But we're wired a little bit differently. He's kind of behind the scenes, where I'm more, in front of the scenes and done more of the microphone type stuff.
Yeah,
but he and I, it's a lot of fun when you get us together, because there's there's 9 years between the two of us, so there never was any sibling rivalry. In fact, I think
9 years.
Yeah. In fact, the number of arguments between the two of us, I can count on one hand growing up and still have fingers left over.
And he's the older one, right?
No, he's younger. Yeah, he's 9 years younger.
Okay.
Yeah, he's 9 years younger than I am. And it is, yeah. I mean, I can still, two. I can count 2 fights that we had of any significance when he was growing up. Yeah.
And the kids had a good Christmas?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was good. They, Gwendolyn, our 16-year-old, last year we got her the brand new Apple iPods, which she promptly lost. Nice. She promptly lost them at school because, of course, she bring them to school and she lost them. Now we knew that they were lost in the locker room. Didn't know what happened to them. Anything else? She hadn't completed the locate my iPod type thing yet. So we got her the new set. So she was connecting those. It connected to the old set that she had not already finished. So we figured out there's someone that's a student at her school that has her old iPod or AirPods. and we've even gone down to, we know what house it is. And we've identified the person. Yeah. But she's turned them off. But now we're kind of going through this debate of, do we go and knock on the door and say, hi, can we have our AirPods back that you picked up about a year ago? It's an odd conversation. So we're not sure.
They may not have. They might have been like,
yeah, they may have just, I mean, we can't assume that it was something that they stole. We can, at the very least, just say they picked them up off the floor in the locker room. So you can't assume anything negative by it. Yeah. But showing up and saying, hey, can I have that stuff back? Especially given that they were lost, I'm guessing sometime around, like February to April of last year. So that's a weird conversation to have. So
the big gift in our family was the MetaQuest Ocular.
Oh yeah, we've got one of those. Yeah, we've got Oculus. Yeah.
Oh, those are wild.
Yeah. What'd you guys play? We haven't played in a while.
Well, there's a Batman one that I played, and then there's you're like a gorilla. But my kids turned it on to where there's like third graders talking in your ear the whole time, and it's like you're part of this of this community while you're playing gorilla tag or something like that.
Oh wow,
it was weird. I felt old, weird. But that was the big gift.
There's some really cool things that NASA does that you should look for. That you can do they upload some of their stuff into VR where you actually feel like you're out there in space. There's some other cool nature stuff where you can go underwater and go around, and they do some real cool things there. That's kind of neat. The other one that your kids may be interested in is oftentimes you can see virtual reality concerts. There is a concert coming up with who is it? It's Charlie XCX, and I forgot who the other person is. That's going to be performing with her, and that's coming up in like a week or so. That's going to be there live.
Remember,
and
it's kind of fun. Sister-in-law doesn't know.
Yeah.
Charlie XTX.
XXCX. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She's a really good performer, very talented. And the one thing that I always remember about her that sticks out is she has, what is it? Synesthesia. Isn't that how you pronounce it? She sees colors when she hears music. So music is representation of the colors for her. Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
Give that like a disease name? That just sounds like something that would be awesome.
I know. It'd be incredible to have. So she's got that. So that's the person I always remember that about her. And so you should look because there's they could probably go, look in the back and see in some of the back catalog and look at some of those VR concerts. Some of them are really cool.
Great idea.
It's a great.
Well, we've got a whole lot of news to cover today. Jimmy Carter moving on to glory, dying at the age of 100. We'll be covering that. Now, look, this was before my time. I was born in 81, so Reagan was president. Don't hardly remember much about his presidency, but definitely none about the Carter presidency. Would love to hear from our listeners what you thought of that guy and his 4 years as president of the United States. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. We're also going to be talking about kind of a big debate that happened Friday and Saturday online, Vivek and the H-1B visas. Kind of Republican conservative movement splitting a little bit on this one. And where do you fall along the lines of it? And Vivek having just a kind of a weird approach of slamming Saved by the Bell.
That was a weird reference. Is it just me, or was the idea that he starts referencing things like Saved by the Bell? I'm like, I don't think you're being current as far as pop culture. It was a weird reference.
It's like you can have the debate without slamming some of the most popular sitcoms growing up in the 80s and
Bringing
90s.
back Urkel and stuff. You're like, that's weird.
Boy Meets World,
yes,
Topanga.
it's so weird.
Every guy my age loved Topanga.
Yes.
So, and then Kelly from Saved by the Bell, and
I
Zach
know.
and Slate. Really? We're going to go after those
exactly.
guys?
I'm like, what? It was such a weird reference point.
We're going to get into that in the 7 o'clock hour. Dave Flaherty, kind of a mega pollster here in Colorado, founder of Magellan Strategy, is going to join us in the 8 o'clock hour. Talk about this Trump Iowa lawsuit. I read through the lawsuit, and it's interesting. Are these pollsters committing fraud and working alongside these newspapers essentially to try to get somebody elected? Does that fall under campaign finance issues and campaign contributions, in-kind contributions, all that stuff? We're going to talk in the 8 o'clock hour. And then probably the biggest poll response I've ever had was asking if Dave Williams should serve a second term as chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. Hundreds of people responding to that poll. Hugo Chavez-Ray, a fan of Dave Williams, is going to join us in the 9 o'clock hour to discuss what that could look like, because that'll be the big vote coming up in February here in the Colorado Republican Party. So lots to cover and talk about. We want you to be a part of it, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome back. I hope you had a great Christmas, and good to see your smiling faces and hear your voices today. We have a busy day today, plenty going on, as you mentioned. 37 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 46 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, expect high winds until later this afternoon. Steady winds between 25 and 35 miles per hour are expected in the region, with gusts of up to 75 miles an hour in parts of Jefferson and Boulder counties. The Denver area could see gusts of up to 55 miles per hour. The National Weather Service says that loose objects should be secured to prevent damage. Red flag warning also in effect in the Denver area until 6 tonight. Any new fires could spread rapidly due to the windy conditions.
Well, I do it just because it relaxes me. It lets me think about something different from what I've been concerned about, like how to write a book, or how to finish a book, or how to work on the quarter centers problems, or what to do about the Middle East peace process or healthcare in Africa. And it's like a complete different life when I walk out of here and get in my wood shop.
That was former President Carter about 30 years ago, talking about painting and woodworking. Colorado officials praising former President Carter following his death at his home in Georgia. He died at the age of 100. Governor Polis said Carter advanced the American ideals we cherish most, including human rights, compassion, and equality. Senator Michael Bennett called Carter a devoted family man, statesman, and a champion for rural communities. Senator Hickenlooper called the 100-year-old former president, first and foremost, a good man in the purest sense of the words. President Biden calling former President Carter a friend to all, speaking from his U.S. Virgin Island, speaking from the U.S. Virgin Island of St. Croix on Sunday. Biden said Carter embodied the most fundamental human values that everyone respects. Biden added that one of his fondest memories of the former president happened decades ago when Carter endorsed the then Delaware senator for president. And he's being remembered for his humanitarian work, of course. After his presidency, Carter worked with Habitat for Humanity and communities throughout Georgia and globally for close to 4 decades. Police say that 3 suspects are in custody after an alleged robbery in Denver was followed by a standoff with police in Englewood. Denver police began looking for the suspects on Sunday afternoon after the robbery in the 2200 block of South Colorado Boulevard. The getaway vehicle was located in Englewood, and the suspects ran into a home on South Inca Street. Suspects were taken into custody several hours later and charges are pending. A teen is recovering after a weekend shooting at an Aurora hotel. Police say the 16-year-old girl walked into a local hospital with a gunshot wound on Saturday night. Investigators later determined that a man was manipulating a gun at a hotel on South Abilene Street when he opened fire and shot the girl. The suspect has been identified but was not in custody Sunday. Police are still trying to determine if the shooting was intentional. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Broncos have to beat the Chiefs this Sunday to clinch a playoff spot, and they don't expect to see Patrick Mahomes at quarterback and a lot of the starters on offense, but the Chiefs would still love to knock out the Broncos coming up in the final week of the season, the regular season this weekend. Backup Carson Wentz expected to be the starter. 33 in Lafayette, 34 in Lakewood, and 37 in Denver. Jeff and Billy are back.
Old white guys, good old white guys, young white guys.
Hey, it's Monday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
710 5-day forecast. We're going to have some scattered clouds over the Front Range today. We're also going to see developing strong west and northwest winds. High wind warning in effect until late this afternoon with gusts over 50 miles an hour. High temps today will be in the upper 40s with lows, middle, and upper teens. For tomorrow, a little more sunshine for New Year's Eve, but a cold front will drop our temps to the middle and upper 30s. Middle and upper 30s for New Year's Day with scattered cloudiness. Lows, middle, and upper teens back in the 40s Thursday and Friday. I'm meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show on this historic morning following the passing of Jimmy Carter. Here's the press release coming from the Carter Center. Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter passes away at 100. Jimmy Carter, the 39th president of the United States and winner of the 2002 Nobel Peace Prize, died peacefully Sunday, December 29th at his home in Plains, Georgia. Surrounded by his family, he was 100. The longest-lived president in U.S. history. President Carter is survived by his children, Jack, Chip, Jeff, and Amy, 11 grandchildren, and 14 great-grandchildren. He's preceded in death by his beloved wife, Rosalind, and one grandchild. My father was a hero, not only to me, but to everyone who believes in peace, human rights, and unselfish love, said Chip Carter, the former president's son. My brother's sister, and I shared him with the rest of the world through this common belief. The world is our family because of the way he brought people together, and we thank you for honoring his memory by continuing to live these shared beliefs. There'll be public observances in Atlanta and Washington, D.C., followed by a private internment in Plains, Georgia. The final arrangements for President Carter's state funeral, including all public events and motorcade routes, are still pending. The schedule will be released by the Joint Task Force for the National Capital Region coming soon. Members of the public are encouraged to visit the official tribute website to the life of President Carter at jimmycartertribute.org. That's jimmycartertribute.org. The site includes official online condolence book as well as print and visual biographical materials commemorating his life. No, Bill, this happened before my life. I have some thoughts on Jimmy Carter, but it's all, post presidency. I think you were pretty young when he was president.
I was.
I know you were a
the
Reagan
polyester
guy.
I remember that. I remember that.
What are your thoughts on Jimmy Carter?
It was
reflecting on his life and presidency.
I was so little. I remember the time, but politics wasn't a part of my life. But I do remember the change in society and the approach of the adults around me when we went out of the Carter administration at the tail end of the 70s into the Reagan administration in 81. I've got really strong memories of that election and seeing advertisements and debates and things like that on TV. And I remember the feeling of my parents of the economy being somewhat stuck during the 70s and then it opening up during the 80s. I remember that as a kid. The other thing that I found as I was growing up is it seemed as if Jimmy Carter's legacy increased after he left the Oval Office, and that he didn't really become respected or even revered until post White House. And I've read a couple of things that kind of pissed him off. That kind of made him mad. Really? Yeah. That people who are like, they kind of said, well, yeah, you were neat as president, but what you've done afterwards is fantastic. And look at all this. He's like, hey, wait a minute. Hold on. And to be fair, there were some things that were very bad during his term, but there are some things that were really good and some things that he didn't have necessarily that strong of control over. But because of external things that were happening, he got stuck in a tight at that point and didn't have much ability to get out of it. But I also think that he might have been, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but the last really genuine good person that we had in the Oval Office. Now, again, I'm not denigrating. So. Yeah, I'm not denigrating
Bush,
Ronald Reagan.
Clinton.
Yeah, but I'm not denigrating Ronald Reagan being a horrible person. The same thing with Obama. But when you look at, I've got some questions about the others in there. But when you look at the life of Carter, I think that he holds up as that idea of a good person making it into the Oval Office, regardless of politics. And I think that there are warts on every president since then in my time. I think we can point out warts for every one of them. And Carter is the one that comes in and then gets out of the White House and is still just at the core, just a good dude. I mean, we can disagree and agree with him on politics all day, but the idea of just, is he a good person at his core? Yeah, he is. And I'm not so certain we can say that about some of the others.
He strikes me as less Machiavellian than the later presidents, right? As far as political savvy and working through the system and manipulating it in order to achieve political ends. He kind of seemed like, from my perspective, and again, this is somebody that wasn't even alive when he was president, but somebody that kind of stumbled into the presidency, kind of the accidental president. Yeah. I mean, I know Abraham Lincoln called himself the accidental president, but Jimmy Carter, to your point, Bill, doesn't seem nearly as calculating in order to drive an agenda as some of the other later presidents. Now, my engagement with him is more as kind of a progressive Christian, because I'm not a progressive Christian. I'm a conservative Christian, but I went to seminary, went to what I would call a pretty liberal seminary. In fact, it was so progressive at the time that I was there that it turned me into the conservative activist I am, because I was debating these professors just being like, no, I just fundamentally disagree with you. And
so you're saying it's a
study and all this stuff.
You're saying it's a church's fault. That's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So within the evangelical realm, you have it's primarily dominated by conservative evangelicals, so pro-life, traditional marriage, attuned to the infallibility and inerrancy of Scripture and all that. But then you do have a sliver of progressive Christians. Christianity Today, for instance, now I put in that category. Russell Moore, David French, they've all kind of gone into what I would consider more of a progressive evangelicalism, and Jimmy Carter exemplified that. So kind of leaning more towards compassion and tolerance and acceptability over a commitment to truth and inerrancy and standing firm on that. And so there's boundaries within all this, and he would lean that direction. So he came across as a much more progressive Christian in my mind. So and then generally an ineffective president when it comes to dealing with Iran, the oil and gas issue, the economy, all those things. That's kind of my perspective on him. I don't see him as nearly as progressive to where the Democrat Party is now. I think Charlie Kirk was talking about this. He was like the last really serious Christian Democrat to be elected, at least at that high of an office, because Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, sympathetic to faith, not totally antagonistic towards it, but not embracing it the same way that Jimmy Carter did. So questions about whether or not Christians can even find a home in the Democrat Party anymore, those types of things will come with the passing of Jimmy Carter. But that was my kind of perspective on him. Now, the Washington Post has an interesting list here. Jimmy Carter, this was 11 facts about Jimmy Carter that may surprise you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you ready for these?
Yeah.
All right. Jimmy Carter was the first future president born in a hospital.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, right. Everybody prior to them born in like a dirt floor, apparently.
Yeah. That's like the one where you realize that at the time Betty White was older than sliced bread. You're like, that's a weird one. Yeah. Sliced bread came out after she was born. So, okay, yeah, continue.
So he was the first president to be inaugurated by a nickname.
Oh.
When Mr. Carter was sworn into office in 1977 on a family Bible held by his wife, Rosalind Carter, he took the presidential oath of office using the name Jimmy instead of James, his actual first name, which he rarely used. Bill Clinton and Joe Biden, who also used their nicknames in the White House, opted to be sworn in using their full names during the inaugurations.
Oh, that's cute. I like that. Yeah.
After Mr. Carter was sworn in, the organizers of his inauguration ceremony floated a giant peanut-shaped balloon in a parade to honor his roots.
That's a good one. I like that.
Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter were married longer than any other presidential couple.
Yeah.
They were married for 77 years.
That's amazing. That is really
awesome.
Now, here's the thing is, again, if we go back and we would say, like you talked about the idea of religion and everything else and looking at him, if we would say that the longest married presidential couple were a bunch of Democrats, that's a weird one. That's one that people probably wouldn't get. Yeah, you'd probably win that at bar trivia. Yeah.
And do you remember the famous line about having lust in my heart?
Oh, yeah.
From Jimmy Carter when he was doing an interview with Playboy?
Yes. That's crazy. Forgotten about that one.
That was his biggest confessed sin.
Yeah, that he had lust in his heart. Yeah. Another fact that it's during the Playboy interview. You're like, well, of course. You're talking to, that's what they deal in. That's, it was so apropos. It was, he got who he was talking to. Yeah.
Washington Post, 11 facts you may not know about Jimmy Carter. He installed solar water heating panels on the roof of the White House West Wing.
Oh, that's interesting.
In 1979, Mr. Carter unveiled solar panels atop the White House as part of his ambitious plan to reduce expensive oil imports by boasting U.S.'s use of sustainable energy.
That's
harnessing the power of the sun to enrich our lives as we move from our crippling dependence on foreign oil, he said.
That would make sense, given what OPEC was doing to him at the time. That would make sense. Yeah.
Peanut One was the technological standard for campaign jets. Peanut One.
Peanut One.
Peanut One, otherwise known as Mr. Carter's 1976 campaign aircraft, served as the headquarters for Mr. Carter's Democratic primary season when the candidate was on the move.
I love it.
It's specialized computer equipment designed to keep the campaign operating from 30,000 feet attracted the admiration of political journalists during the time.
Wow. I just like the name Peanut One. I just
Peanut One.
just like that. It just makes me giggle.
Mr. Carter's judicial appointments were the most racially and gender diverse at the time. Mr. Carter named 57 minority judges and 41 female judges to the federal judiciary during his single term in the White House, which, according to the Carter Center, was more than all previous presidents combined. One of those judges was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who Mr. Carter nominated in 1980 to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit.
Yeah, and that would make sense. That time, that it would be the most diverse. That would just make sense. Yeah, based on where society was at the time.
A devout Christian, the Washington Post writes, he struggled with abortion but later supported same-sex marriage. Like I said, he was a progressive Christian. A lifelong Baptist who described himself as born-again Christian, Mr. Carter describes his faith as foundational to his politics. During his presidency, Mr. Carter's Christianity led him to personally oppose abortion, which he said he believes should not be federally funded through Medicaid. Although he said he was able to live with, quote unquote, the 1973 Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision legalizing abortion nationwide. His faith continued to shape his position after he left the White House, including on same-sex marriage. I believe that Jesus would approve same-sex marriage. I disagree with him on that. But he told an interviewer in 2015 after the unions were declared legal by the Supreme Court. So, like I said, a progressive evangelical. He made eradicating the guinea worm a personal mission. The 39th president's nonprofit organization, the Carter Center, launched its campaign to globally eradicate the guinea worm disease in 1986, when there was an estimated 3.5 million cases of the painful parasitic condition worldwide. There's no cure for the ancient disease, which is contracted by consuming a larval parasite in unfiltered water. Inside the body, the larva grows into worms up to 3 feet long. By 2022, just 13 cases were reported worldwide, according to the Carter Center, which for decades supported governments in promoting clean drinking water and interrupting transmission chains. I'd like for the last guinea worm to die before I do, Mr. Carter said in a news conference in 2015.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Didn't know that.
He spent 89 seconds inside a nuclear reactor in meltdown.
Yes. Yeah. And then was radioactive for a while. Yes. Yeah, he was radioactive for a bit.
When a nuclear reactor in Ontario, Canada exploded in 1952, spewing radioactive material into the atmosphere, the U.S. Navy deployed a team, including Mr. Carter, then a 28-year-old lieutenant, who had helped develop the first nuclear submarine to assist Canadian authorities with dismantling its partially melted core. Lieutenant Carter entered the reactor dressed in protective gear with 2 other specialists, exposing himself for 89 seconds to the same amount of radiation that the general population absorbs in 1 year. He later said that his urine continued to test positive for radioactivity for 6 months.
Yep, he was radioactive for a while. I remember that one.
Elvis Presley called Mr. Carter, but was too high for the president to understand him. You remember this one?
No, well, that's fantastic. I love that.
This is Washington Post list of things you may not know about Jimmy Carter. In a 2011 interview, Mr. Carter recalled that shortly after his inauguration, he received a phone call from Elvis Presley at the White House. He was totally stoned and didn't know what he was saying. His sentences were almost incoherent, Mr. Carter told the New York Magazine. Geez. The singer apparently wanted the newly sworn-in president to pardon a sheriff who was in trouble with the law. Mr. Carter described himself as a personal friend of Presley's in a 1977 interview. It said that the musician's death had deprived the country of a part of itself. More than 20 years ago, he burst upon the scene with an impact that was unprecedented and will probably never be equaled, Mr. Carter said upon the issue of Presley's death. I can get a hold of the president, and they called him and apparently couldn't string a sentence together.
Oh, that's funny. That is funny that someone allowed high Elvis to call the president. That's fantastic. Who's around Elvis at the time? Yes, King. Absolutely. Call him right now. Yes, sir. Yes. Oh, that's hilarious.
One more. British tabloids accused Mr. Carter of breaching royal protocol by kissing the Queen Mother on her lips.
Oh, hey, wow. Who knew?
2 years, 2 years after Mr. Carter, was that part of the lust in his heart?
Yeah, I know.
2 years after Mr. Carter visited Buckingham Palace in 1977, rumors began circulating in the British press that he had kissed the Queen Mother on the lips, which the papers considered a scandalous invasion of her personal space. He is the only man since my dear husband died to have the effrontery to kiss me on the lips, the Queen Mother reportedly said. Mr. Carter forcefully denied the account in his memoir, insisting that his goodnight peck had been delivered lightly and on the Queen Mother's cheek.
Oh, yeah. There'll be disagreements about that. That's funny. I had no idea about
so
some of
those are the 11
That's
facts
fantastic.
about Jimmy Carter that may surprise you.
That's
Thank
fantastic.
you, Washington Post, for that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let us know about the legacy that you think Jimmy Carter's leaving behind. Good, bad? Listen, about half our audience are Republicans, the other half Democrats. Love to hear directly from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show on this Monday, December 30th. Jimmy Carter passing away yesterday. Bill, speaking of Bill,
Yes.
you ever heard of Billy Beer?
Yes. Yeah, in fact.
We got a text message here from Iggy about it.
Yeah, in fact, if we are in our regular studios, sharp-eyed observers will see a can of Billy Beer sitting behind me. But that's in our regular studio. It's
Was
hidden
that
behind
really
me.
there?
Yeah, it's there. It's hidden behind me. Again, they're Easter eggs that are hidden behind me but it's in our other studio.
Oh, you
Yeah.
actually have a can of Billy Beer. I
Oh
heard
yeah,
these are hard to get.
Adam ran it down the aisle for me down the hall.
Is it on the video now?
Here's the camera. Yep, you can see it on the camera.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, got a can of it, and it sits behind me.
You got to explain Billy Beer.
Well, it's basically it started with the president's brother, and it's just basically he's kind of a goofy kind of character, Billy Carter, and so it was just kind of the idea. He was a beer drinking gas station owner, and I don't remember the story about how it was actually created, but it tasted like, from my recollection back in the day, like the bastard cousin of Pabst Blue Ribbon. It was not a good thing. It was not a good. It was nothing that anybody. It wasn't even close to something like Coors Banquet. It was really, really awful. It was, it's even Lowenbrow had stuff on Billy Beer that was better. So I don't know.
Here was the endorsement printed on the can: brewed expressly for and with the personal approval of one of America's all-time great beer drinkers, Billy Carter, Jimmy Carter's brother. I had this beer brewed up just for me. I think it's the best I've ever tasted, and I've tasted a lot. I think you'll like it too.
Yeah, which again, that seems just like goofy and everything else. And I think if you would target or market something like that right now, it would actually probably do pretty well. Just the idea that, hey, I brewed this, I like this, and you'll like it too, kind of a thing. So
he died at the age of 51.
Oh, wow. A lot of beer, I guess.
Maybe Billy Beer, not.
Yeah. No, not at all. No, nobody's out there looking for, the recall of Billy Beer. So, yeah, I know.
Well, speaking of what's good for you.
Yeah, speaking of what's good for you, I want to talk to you about my friends at Balance Well Space. I had been living my life in constant pain for a number of years because I'd done some stupid things when I was younger and some lingering problems based on surgery. I thought growing up that's just what happened, is these things start hurting when you get old. That was my experience with the older people around me. I didn't know until I connected with Balance Well Space that's not how you have to live your life. Balance Well Space made a difference in my life with integrative medicine, and they can make the same change in yours. But let's talk about integrative medicine for a second. Integrative medicine is when you get a whole bunch of different treatments all under one roof. Things like physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, trigger point injections, regenerative care, neuropathic care, chiropractic care, and so much more. When you meet with the team at Balance Well Space, they do a personal pain evaluation. They do the tests, but they also talk to you about what hurts, and then also things that you have not been doing in your life. What has the pain been preventing you from doing? Then they put together a personal pain plan and go to work. They put one together for me, and the results were nothing short of amazing. The soreness that I had for over 2 decades in my right shoulder is gone. I had 2 vertebrae in my bottom of my lower back that are fusing together. We're now pulling them apart, and we're regenerating the disc that is in there. So that pain, that constant sciatica, it's gone as well. And my torn meniscus in my left knee, I'm regenerating that meniscus as we are talking as well, because my weak left knee is now my strong left knee. It's my right knee that is acting like the bum knee right now. And you would have told me that 12 months ago, I wouldn't have believed you. The difference is the team at Balance Well Space. Talk to Dr. Julie, Dr. Jess, the entire team. Be everybody else. But you got to take the first step. BalanceWellSpace.com, BalanceWellSpace.com. Reach out to them. Brand new offices in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2. Plenty of parking. And when you do, tell them that you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show, because we sure do appreciate it. So remember, BalanceWellSpace.com. Start living the new year without that pain, but you've got to take the first step. BalanceWellSpace.com.
That's great to hear, Bill. Up next, you choose the news. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, Billy, it's been too long, and I think you need to just hook it into my veins a little bit. If you choose the news,
Do you have any idea how many stories I have run across in the last week that I have not been able to share with the people? Yes, it is that time where we play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. You choose the news. I have spent, in all honesty, way too much time over the past week finding really ridiculous stories about us humans to give them really dumb headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. I have missed all of you, and we've got to do this already. Blake Olson is going to be joining us from the newsroom, and as always, this is a secret. Those people in charge have no idea we are being this foolish and wasteful of valuable airtime, so shh, this is our secret. Alrighty, gentlemen, here are your headlines. Headline number 1, hey, I'm walking here. Headline number 2, do some harm. Headline number 3, what a catch. And headline number 4, help her get to the other side. Your choice,
hey,
Mr. Hunt.
I'm walking here.
Hey, I'm walking here. Netflix executives are saying that so many viewers are actually not paying attention. They're putting Netflix on in the background, that they're now encouraging screenwriters to have the characters announce what they're doing. That couldn't go wrong at all. Things like, hey, I'm walking down the street. I'm now going to be leaving this office in order to go home. Look, I am picking up this book. I am now going to be drinking this soda. That's not going to slow down things at all, nor make things really weird. Also, though, if you have been watching some newer Netflix shows and you see randomly placed exposition where the characters seem to be describing things that you already know they're doing, that's why. Is because they're listening to the executives that are giving them big monies to make the show. And so they're telling you now, eventually you're not going to have to watch Netflix. They'll just tell you what's happening.
Those describe it all. Are you at the point where you watch with captions on?
Occasionally, yeah, I will a lot of times.
I feel like you passed 40.
Yes.
You got to start watching.
Yeah, there are
TV
times you're like,
captions.
but then sometimes the captions are wrong. And you're like, what are you doing here? Yeah, that just annoyed me. But it's the weird part is when I get captions and I forget to turn it off, and then I go to one of the Spanish stations to watch a soccer match. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I have no clue. All right. So now at number 2, headline number 2, Blake Olson, your choice. Do some harm. What a catch, or help her get to the other side.
What a catch!
Yeah, what a catch! Here we are going to Mossel Bay, South Africa. Recently, a young woman was offshore, caught in a deadly riptide at Deas Beach. So she's screaming. She's about to drown. Onlookers start calling the emergency number to get rescuers there. By the time the rescue crews arrive, she's safe and drying herself off on the beach. How could this possibly happen? Yeah. All thanks to a clever fisherman. Now, a group of fishermen saw her screaming and yelling when she was caught in the riptide. One of them said, I'm going to take a shot. He went ahead and cast his line in her direction. He was actually fishing for a particular kind of large, deep water fish, and he needs a large, very sharp hook. He attached the hook when he cast it to her jeans. It snagged her jeans, and he was able to reel her into the shore. Yeah. Eventually, when she got into about waist-deep water, she was able to stand up and walk ashore. And so by the time the emergency crews arrived, she was on the shore getting treatment, and she was just fine. Isn't that cool? Yeah. I love the fact the fisherman's like, I'm going to give a shot. And gets out there and nails it. Yeah, and gets her by the jeans.
Didn't hurt her at all?
No, gets her in the jeans. That's the thing. No harm at all for her. He just starts pulling her home. Yes.
What kind of jeans were they?
I have no idea, but I definitely should have an endorsement. Yes, exactly.
Not a skin tight. That's right.
Final choice this morning, Mr. Hunt. Do some harm or help her get to the other side?
Help her get to the other side.
Yeah, help her get to the other side. We're going to Gloucester, a quaint little village there, and talking about a rescue chicken named Billie Jean. Well, you know that choice about the idea of why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side. Now, Billie Jean is part of a group of free-range chickens owned by the people that run the Railway Inn. It's a family pub. They've been there for over 3 decades, and they have chickens. But Billie Jean is unlike most chickens. She takes the idea of free range to the extreme. She wanders all over town. Even people that are members of the town say that they have followed, Billie Jean has followed them home from work, followed the kids to school. And so in order to keep Billie Jean safe, they've got her little high-res vest. So she has a reflective vest on. So when you're crossing the road, she's going to be safe getting to the other side.
That's awesome.
Isn't that kind of cool?
There you go.
All righty.
Free-range chickens.
Yep, that's it, man. Back to you.
We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Kevin, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. It's a little windy today, but we're going to get after it. We've got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, quite a debate kicking off over these HB1 visas. Musk and Ramaswamy defending foreign worker visas, and MAGA a little concerned about them. CNN reporting social media posts by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy arguing in favor of expanding the visa program for highly skilled workers has set off a debate among supporters of President-elect Donald Trump over how the program should fit into the incoming administration's aggressive immigration agenda. Musk and Ramaswamy, whom Trump has tapped to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, defended companies who use worker visas called the H-1B visas, arguing tech companies, including those owned by Musk, depend on foreign workers to operate. But their message rankled some of Trump's most loyal defenders who expect his administration to crack down on immigration and promote American labor. Trump restricted access to foreign worker visas during his first term and has targeted the H-1B program in past remarks. But during the 2024 campaign, Trump signaled openness to give some foreign-born workers legal status if they graduate from U.S. universities. Now, I'm going to read for you after news and comment from Blake Olson, Vivek's tweet that went uber viral, targeting Saved by the Bell? Yes. Boy Meets World? Family Matters?
Yeah, that was so weird.
This was wild. I'll read it afterwards. And I want to hear from you all about this H-1B visa. How you feel about it? Does it need to be restricted? Is it ripe for abuse? Or are these types of immigrants to our country necessary? We'll get to that and more. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 36 and clear in Denver. Expecting a high of 46 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, though, expect high winds until later this afternoon. A red flag warning is also in effect in the Denver area until 6 tonight. Any new fires could spread rapidly due to the windy conditions. Colorado officials are praising former President Carter following his death at his home in Plains, Georgia. Governor Polis and Carter says that Carter advanced the American ideals we cherish most, including human rights, compassion, and equality. Senator Michael Bennet called Carter a devoted family man, statesman, and champion for rural communities. Senator Hickenlooper called the 100-year-old former president first and foremost a good man in the purest sense of the words. One of the best things he did after he was in office was openly exposing global child sex trafficking by world governments, and he did it on Letterman.
And 80% of those slaves sold are young girls who are being sold into the sex slavery. And this occurs, about 100,000 of them are in the United States, not sold across international borders. Atlanta is a key of a human trafficking or slavery trade.
How and why would it be? Well, how and why does it exist anywhere? How and why would Atlanta be the center of it in the United States?
I think because we have the largest airport on earth, and people come there from all over the southern part of the hemisphere, where girls can be bought cheaper.
He's being remembered for his humanitarian work after his presidency. Carter worked with Habitat for Humanity and communities throughout Georgia and globally for close to 4 decades. A lot of people will remember him for mismanaging the Iranian hostage crisis, 444 days, and high gas prices and no gas at times. So those were tough times during his administration. Still no definitive word on what caused a deadly plane crash in South Korea Sunday, and it could take weeks to get data from the plane's black boxes. The flight from Bangkok was carrying 181 people when it skidded off the runway and crashed into a barrier, bursting into flames. 2 people were rescued, but 179 were killed. Police say 3 suspects in custody after an alleged robbery in Denver was followed by a standoff with police in Englewood. Police began looking for suspects on Sunday afternoon after the robbery in the 2200 block of South Colorado Boulevard. The getaway vehicle was located in Englewood, and the suspects ran into a home on South Inca Street. The suspects were taken into custody several hours later, and charges are pending. Well, the Broncos have to beat the Chiefs this Sunday to clinch a playoff spot, and they don't expect to see Patrick Mahomes at quarterback and a lot of the starters on offense. But the Chiefs, you can expect head coach Andy Reid and the Chiefs looking to knock off the Broncos and knock them out of the playoffs with backup Carson Wentz at quarterback. 33 in Brighton, 34 in Centennial, 36 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. It's Monday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. We're going to have some scattered clouds over the Front Range today. We're also going to see developing strong west and northwest winds. High wind warning in effect until late this afternoon with gusts over 50 miles an hour. High temps today will be in the upper 40s with lows middle and upper teens. For tomorrow, a little more sunshine for New Year's Eve, but a cold front will drop our temps to the middle and upper 30s. Middle and upper 30s for New Year's Day with scattered cloudiness. Lows middle and upper teens back in the 40s Thursday and Friday. I'm meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, so Vivek Ramaswamy on December 26th, so 4 days ago, tweets this out. The reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans, put Native in quotes, not Indian American, Native American, but they're born here, and isn't because of innate American IQ deficient, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers. And if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college. It starts young. A culture. Dude, this is the tweet that this is the line that really got people going. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World or Zach and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell or Stefan over Steve Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. Fact, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity. And their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kids of parents. More normal American kids view those kind of kids with scorn. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raised their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our butts handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened from slumber before, and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, and hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for us, rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. I'm confident we can do it. Holy cow, Bill. Vivek had some words.
Why did he pick this fight? This is stupid. Again, the thing that sticks out for me is the complete lack of understanding of what the world is like now that just seeps throughout his post. The one that should raise a huge, not a red flag, but the one should stick out for everybody is when he talks about fewer Saturday morning cartoons. I'm sorry, but WTF? What the hell is he talking about? When is the last time we had Saturday morning cartoons? It's been at least 15 years, probably 20, that we didn't have regular Saturday morning cartoons because you have an entire channel that does cartoons all the time, and then we have on-demand streaming. The idea is he's sitting there and he's talking about culture, but it's not a culture that reflects where we are right now. Saved by the Bell, Boy Meets World, those aren't references that are prescient, that they don't matter right now. They're unique throwbacks and we all get them, but he's complaining about something from decades ago. It's very, very weird.
So I put up a post on X that same day, a poll. Whom should America celebrate? The math Olympiad? The prom queen? Or is this just a bizarre false dichotomy? And 75% went with this is a bizarre false dichotomy.
But the thing is, we've already decided.
Okay.
We've already decided that we celebrate the jock over the valedictorian. And the idea is how much do we pay scientists versus how much do we pay our professional athletes? We've already decided which one we value. This is obvious which one we value. And remember, but we've also had inside our society, in my opinion, for the past 20 years, possibly a little bit more, we've had a push towards anti-intellectualism. The idea of these pointed-headed, cone-headed people that are inside these institutions of higher learning, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're indoctrinating kids, and we've even had it bleed down into regular schools. So we don't celebrate education. We've been told by one political party specifically that we should distrust vast quantities of education and what they're doing. And yet someone that belongs to that same political party is now like, how come no one respects education? What have you been doing for the last 20 years?
Do you think, but the critique is they're not doing education.
Not necessarily. What he's talking about is, again, this is the idea is he's saying that we aren't celebrating education anymore by, in my opinion, the party that has been against celebrating education and denigrating education. I think that the Democrats are a little backwards on it as well. But what party has said that the kids are being indoctrinated by our schools? What party has said the teachers are these Marxist liberal communists that are trying to turn your kids into little tiny socialists? Which party has been saying that our institutions of higher learning, you shouldn't even go there anymore? You should actually be doing something else because you'll be better at it. Peter Thiel is a huge advocate of skipping
Yeah, no, he's paying
institutions
people
of,
not to go to college.
Exactly. Huge advocate for it. And he's considered a conservative. He's considered a conservative mover and shaker. And now Vivek is lamenting the fact that we've become anti-intellectual. No, we are reaping what we have sowed.
I feel like we're talking about multiple different things here. The critique of Vivek is that we need to get very serious about producing engineers. And look, we all went to school with kids like that, the math Olympiads and stuff like that. And athletes get front loaded with their pay, but I've known many that spend the rest of their lives like selling cars in order to try to, they might get a few million up front in their career, but then they've got to try to make that last. Whereas math Olympians, tend to do pretty well long term because they can build an entire career into their 60s and 70s using their brain, which is a good thing for them. But I just found like he was trying to slay some sacred cows in our culture that aren't so bad. I mean, those were fun times to watch Saved by the Bell and Family Matters and Boy Meets World, and every guy I knew had a crush on Topanga, and it was that was kind of like harmless American culture. And I don't get the strategy of trying to slay those in an effort to get families to be more serious about math and reading and those types of things. It just seemed like because he slayed those sacred cows, the rest of the message isn't going to be taken as seriously. And in fact, you got a lot of pushback on social media because he did that. So like, did it achieve his end? Well, it definitely got attention, but I saw some posts going, well, he just kissed his presidential aspirations goodbye, going after Slater and Zach and it's Kelly Kapowski.
It's weird that the GOP, the party that has been saying that immigrants are coming here and stealing your jobs, and immigrants are coming here and they're causing the crime, and immigrants are the problem that we have with average Americans not being able to get ahead in this economy. And Vivek's solution, along with Elon Musk, immigrants. And not just immigrants at base level jobs, immigrants at high paying tech jobs. That's a really, really interesting play for the GOP to be advocating for an expansion to bring in more immigrants for the higher paying tech jobs rather than pushing for Americans to get them. Elon's follow up to what Vivek was responding to basically said pretty much, I mean, again, this is a ham-handed way to describe it, but the crux of what Elon was saying was that Americans are too stupid to take these jobs. You're too dumb. You don't have the ability. You don't have the mental power. You don't have the intestinal fortitude to be able to achieve this. We have to get other people from around the world because Americans are too stupid. That's pretty much what he said. I mean, it's a ham-handed
disagree. No, I think
that's what he said.
What Elon Musk was talking about was, Elon was saying that there's a small percentage, I think he said like 0.1% of the engineers here. But why wouldn't America want the very best to come here and work for us? Like, why wouldn't we want to pool that? I think that's a different debate. And I think there's probably a sliver. There's a sliver bad, in MAGA.
But immigrants bad. Immigrants come take American jobs.
There's a sliver in the MAGA movement that'll go, I don't want a single immigrant in this country. But I don't think that's a majority of them. A majority of them are going to go the low-skilled immigrant that are coming over in like masses, like in millions, 10 million, that are now sucking up tax resources in the cities of Denver and creating budget crises, and in some cases leading to crime, all that stuff that needs to be addressed. But if you're like next level thinker coming from India and you want to go to the best universities and build a life here in America, that type of immigration, and you follow all the rules. But there's also concerns about these H-1B visas. And people were pointing this out online, that there's a lot of abuse that's taking place where these farms, did you hear about these like H-1B visa farms where they're pulling in low-skilled workers, fixing and adjusting their resumes, essentially lying getting them jobs, all that stuff, that needs to be addressed. I don't think anybody wants that to continue.
And we know that one of the larger segments of individuals that lead to illegal immigration are people overstaying those visas. They don't leave when they're up.
Sure.
And again, but the idea is immigrants coming here to take American jobs is bad. That's what we heard during the last election cycle. And now we have the party that trumpeted that. No, but again, that was never delineated inside of the campaign message. It was immigrants bad coming to take Americans' jobs. There wasn't any gray area inside of it. And now we have the party that said that is going ahead and saying we need more immigrants to come and take American jobs.
Trump said that if you come here on these visas and you get a college degree, you should be able to stay. Now, there was some pushback on that, but the idea that there wasn't any delineation that all immigrants are bad and all immigrants are taking American jobs, that didn't take place.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. But don't remember Stephen? Wait, hang on a sec. What was Stephen Miller? Stephen Miller stood there on stage and yelled, "America for Americans." Yes.
Right.
Yes. That's exactly it. Yes.
But
don't have the immigrants.
About these small little percentages of highly skilled, brilliant people, why wouldn't America want them?
I know. I don't know why there was a political party that decided that immigrants are bad and coming here to take American jobs is a horrible thing. I think that
you're painting with a broad brush.
No, yes, I am. And you know why? Because it was painted that way during the election cycle. I'm only being fair. There was no delineation in this. It was all about the fact that the immigrants are coming in to take your jobs. And in some ways for MAGA, for the core of MAGA, this is worse. This is more of an affront than the migrant farm workers coming in to pick berries. This is more of an affront than the illegal immigrant cleaning the rooms at a hotel. This is a high-paying, highly skilled job that we're not going to give to an American. If I'm a MAGA follower, I'm pissed that Vivek and Elon are saying Americans can't have or don't have the ability to get these highly paid, highly trained, skilled jobs. To me, if I'm a MAGA supporter, if I'm wearing that red hat, they've just slapped me in the face. They've told me I don't have what it takes to get that job.
I think we're talking about a very small percentage, but I want to hear from our callers. We've got Francis. Is that right, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's take Francis.
Yeah,
Francis,
morning,
good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill show.
Hey, how's it going, you guys?
Good. How are you, man? How's Christmas?
That was good. I was a good boy, so Santa came through.
Hey, nicely done.
Yeah, I hope that happened with you guys. I was always worried about that for you two. I don't know.
I got some coal, but the nice part is you can turn that into something good. It always makes heat and warmth, so that's okay.
That's true. Hey, I think Vivek, he's identifying what I think is just a fact right now in our society is that we don't have people who can adequately fill those positions. And I think that it is largely due to decades and decades of educational failure and emphasis on things that doesn't matter. And so you have to go to a pool that's outside of the country. And MAGA can get pissed off and upset about that all they want, but it's a fact. I mean, look, deal with the fact. Don't deal with this world that simply doesn't exist in your head. This is where we are now. And so I think you need the H-1B visas. We got it to stay competitive.
I agree. And I think that we're actually talking about a small percentage of people. And I recognize that not every genius is going to come from my home country. You're going to have some really talented people that just come from another place. And I don't understand why America wouldn't want to be the place where they come to and finish their education, start their businesses. That's fine for me. But I think that there's the MAGA crew is right to critique general mass immigration that's to come, millions of people that have come in. That's a fair critique. And it's also a fair critique that the H-1B visa program has been abused. And it needs to be adjusted and changed.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this is a big split as some are trying to make it.
I think I agree with you. Here's what I do think that, look, you kind of get what we're reaping what we've sown here for a long time educationally. And when here's where I get the Vivek references to athletes and people sitting around watching, junk TV or whatever, this sort of thing. And everybody wins society, all that. has not been beneficial to being. It's anti-competitive. But here's what I think is that we've had anti-competitiveness in schools now for decades. It's been rewarded. And
thank you, Jimmy Carter, for creating the Department of Education.
Well, yeah, let's not dance on his grave, because he inherited a mess, despite what people are going to be telling us about. Carter. Once again, I'm going to go biblical on you here, but after the death of Kennedy, I mean, Johnson beget Nixon, Nixon beget Carter, Carter beget Reagan. And what I think people forget about Carter is that, the stagflation didn't start here, and it wasn't caused here. It was basically the Arab oil embargo and the Iranian Revolution that created the scarcity problem and we couldn't, it isn't the way it is now. We couldn't extract oil out of our ground as efficiently as just buying it overseas. It's changed quite a bit. Technology has changed that quite a bit, but Carter inherited a can of worms. I mean, he didn't create a can of worms.
I want to go back to, the idea of venerating the prom queen over the math Olympiad. Do you think that Vivek's critique on that is fair?
Well, I think yes, a little bit. I think that our math and science people are not given as much attention and credit, and therefore it draws people who may have otherwise had proclivities and talents those directions away from that, because it's just human nature to want to have the kind of accolades and things. And so you pull people away from areas that you actually need in practical real world time, because they want to be the athlete on TV or something that is venerated. It doesn't mean that those people shouldn't have some attention. I mean, of course they should. I spent half my weekend watching football, but we shouldn't think it's a mystery that we don't have the talent pool right now to get what we need.
And Francis, I appreciate that. What I want to put this person on the table to talk about how our society venerates and who we're venerating right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out the Hawk Tua girl. That she makes a comment. She makes a comment during this, goes viral. Now she has her own podcast, her own line of merch, and her own line of cryptocurrency that's being investigated because it sure looks like it's a scam and it was a pump and dump scheme because like 80% of the value dropped in the first 2 hours. But that's the person who we have elevated. We've given her own merch line. We've given her attention on social media, and we've given her own podcast. If someone comes out and wins the spelling bee, they don't get that. Someone comes out and is a mathlete, they don't get that. As a society, we've decided what's important.
But it's brief.
I agree.
And didn't we all understand that with the prom queen and king, that they're getting venerated now, but the kid that's doing advanced calculus, you still want to be friends with because that guy's actually going the distance. Yeah, Hawk Tua may pop here for a year, but I bet 3 years from now we're not talking about her at all. So it seems like a bizarre critique, because at least I grew up this way, going, the kids that are super popular in high school are super popular now. They're not going to carry that for the rest of their lives. And the kids that are spending their time doing the calculus work and reading and getting a good degree and heading off to Ivy League schools, they're going to build it for the long term, and they're going to be rewarded over the long term. And they're, the kids that did that I know are very well off, whereas the homecoming king at Cherry Creek High School is hosting a 710 KNUS radio show.
Well, I think that society does venerate the vacuous blonde, person. Look at Brittany Pedersen. There we go.
Yeah.
That's funny.
No.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I had to throw it in there. I mean, any way you can take a swipe at her, I think you take it. But, I guess I pull it back now. I feel bad. Gee whiz. I guess I'll have to live with myself.
Ian's going to come after you. Don't worry.
Yes. But I don't know. I don't know. I do think that look, Vivek's got a little bit of a point here, and I think it does rub MAGA the wrong way, because I think a lot of those guys think that, hey, they could do that work, and I think in reality, no, you really couldn't.
Yeah. No, Francis, I appreciate the
appreciate
point.
it, man.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Francis's line will be open 303-696-1971. You can join us also on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. We'll continue. Calls starting to come in. We'll get to them next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're discussing the H-1B visas. Vivek and Elon saying these are critical. We need to be bringing the best and brightest talent to America. Others going, well, this system has been rife for abuse. Even Donald Trump wanting to re-examine it. And some going, no, these jobs are being taken by immigrants. These high-skilled kind of tech engineering jobs being taken by immigrants, and Americans should get those. But then Vivek going, well, America's not producing them. You're too obsessed with Kelly Slater, Saved by the Bell instead of Screech, which is just weird because Screech ended up being a total disaster. He's not even alive anymore, is he?
I don't know. Actually, I didn't check on that one.
I think he died. He died of cancer.
Yeah, I might have.
But then he was in adult films and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, but again, odd reference for Vivek to be making. And I kind of want to jump off of something we got off the text messages, and they were talking about whether or not Vivek's comments are supportive of DEI initiatives. That's an interesting question. Because if you're advocating for more
he's
immigrants,
all about meritocracy.
Yeah,
he's making the argument that no,
but that would be because you're looking for more immigrants and everything else, you're having both diversity and you're also having inclusion. You'd hit 2 of the 3 in DEI. Yeah.
But he's not doing it for diversity's sake. He's doing it because he believes that they're the best.
Oh, I understand that, but is he accomplishing that? But he's accomplishing that. He's accomplishing both diversity and inclusion based on this. That's interesting.
But
that he's advocating for it.
Because that was all about just judging somebody by their skin color.
No,
let's go to the phone lines. Frank, Denver, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Welcome back, guys. Hope you guys had a good holidays.
Yeah, I hope you did too. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Great to hear from you.
This is an interesting topic. It has so many different facets. I think everybody sees this from their own blinded position. Probably 2 of the most blinded would be Elon and Vivek, trying to represent a portion of the economy that is especially interesting to them. I like to go back to some common sense principles. Number one, America, I think, is the most diverse economy ever. I think you see so many people worldwide wanting to come here. I don't think you see the top scientists from India, no matter what they pay them, wanting to go to China. They'd rather come here. And part of that is the balance of life and the other opportunities and things that they have, not just money. But it's funny, I like to throw in a few little fun things. One of them was a saying that was attributed to Sarah Palin. I don't know if she really said this or not, but she said this was attributed to her: thinking causes wrinkles. And so I think that they were making a funny about Sarah Palin, but the other quote would be one from Einstein: genius is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. So the people that sometimes come up with these good ideas labor at it over a long time. On the other hand, I've known very smart, inventive people that have been sitting on the beach having a cocktail, watching boats go by, and come up with an idea that is instrumental in developing a medical invention that helps further medicine. So ideas come from all over. I think.
No, Frank, I want to ask you this question. Do you have any problem with the United States importing the world's geniuses?
No, I do not. And I was going to comment on that, on a position I think that Vivek and Elon are taking in their industries. They're seeing somewhat into the future. And I think you cannot deny their positions, because in the future, it's an information technology. It's only going to get worse going forward. And with the creation of AI, you're going to need some of the world's greatest minds developing AI, because AI is going to drive so many things into the future. So their businesses, and lots of American businesses and the world's businesses, depend on banks or panels of computer types, creating and writing code and creating AI, whatever AI becomes. But then you have to have common sense in the use of it and how it applies to our culture. But these people want to escape these places. They don't want to stay in a brainiac mill for the rest of their life, just being treated as a computer nerd. They they like the balance. They are attracted to what America has to offer. So I think that, yes, I think it should be, we should encourage that. You're going to take a leap forward by placing emphasis on it for a short while to bring them in, but maybe that should be done because we've imported, so many people who have lesser skills to be the labor force for a long time. So maybe we need a higher emphasis on the brainiac force.
So Jeff, so what I'm hearing, Frank, and I'll ask Jeff this as well, is that what we need to do as Americans is understand that we as a society aren't smart enough, clever enough, or have the ability to do these jobs. They need to be given to people outside of our country because Americans can't do them. Is that fair?
Well, no, I think you're making, no pun intended, a quantum leap in your comment there.
In what way? Help me now, Frank. Help me understand. And this is why. And I am making a devil's advocate argument because at the core, I think Vivek and Elon are right at the kernel of their idea. I think their execution and rationalization for it are completely and totally wrong-headed. I think they're making a totally bad and backwards argument as for why. But I do think they have hit on the right policy. And what I'm pushing back on is everything that I have heard from MAGA about the idea that it is the immigrants that are coming in that are causing all the pain in America, that we need to be putting Americans first. As Steve Miller said, America is for Americans. Yet in this case, even though it is a small percentage, and the reason I highlight it is because these are very important, highly paid, highly desirable jobs. But on those jobs, Americans can't do them, is what I'm hearing.
Well, no, I think you're right, Billy, that it comes across like that. And sometimes the truth is a hard pill to swallow. And if you go back historically in the evolution of this country, pilgrims were exported over here because they wanted freedom and they wanted a different way. But their emphasis on education and a lot of things, religion and lots of other hard driving principles, started this country off. It sustained it. It has built it. We've somehow been able to generate genii over the years that have contributed to a lot of things. But genii come from all countries. And so if we can build a culture that attracts those people to come to America, then we're harvesting them. But we hope that we'll always harvest them for the good of the world and not just a selfish reason.
Frank, I really appreciate the call.
Smart,
Thanks
Frank.
so much.
Thank
Frank
you.
from Denver, his line will be open, 303-696-1971. Lots of text messages coming in on this one. Bill and Jeff, I don't think the issue is that the American citizens can't do the jobs. It's that the visa holders will take less money than a U.S. citizen. It's the same all the way down the pay scale, 4728.
Oh, so this is an idea they don't want to pay the Americans. This is a cost-saving measure that you're going to get that cheap immigrant labor.
That's a critique. That's an actual
interesting.
critique.
I like that thought.
Mary from Wyoming, don't those tech firms underpay those folks using the visas to keep the
There we
wages
go.
low?
Yeah, there we go.
There's a lot of critique about that. Well, I want to talk to you about somebody that is doing a great job out there. That's Advanced Hair Restoration. If the last couple of years have taught us one thing, this New Year's, it's to value the things we can control. And addressing hair loss is no exception. Our friends at Advanced Hair Restoration can reverse years or even decades of hair loss with their simple one-day treatment. Your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day, and your new hair is backed by the Advanced Hair Guarantee. It works for bald spots, receding hairlines, thinning hair. Men, women, younger, wiser, advanced hair can address many different patterns of hair loss. Advanced Hair's top-rated physicians, like Dr. Tanya Pauls, have changed tens of thousands of people's lives, and now it's your turn. Schedule your free consultation by calling 720-459-HAIR. And to celebrate the new year, get special financing, 250 free hair grafts, and $250 off. Value the things you can control and start regrowing your own natural hair today. That's 720-459-HAIR. 720-459-HAIR. You can become inspired with the before and after pictures at advancedhair.com. Again, advancedhair.com. You know, I've had family members get hair treatments done, and it really did change their lives. It brought back a youthfulness, an energy in just about every aspect of their lives. Their work relationships, family, even romantic relationships changed as a result of getting their hair done. So check out advancedhair.com. All right, we'll continue with your calls and texts about these H-1B visas. Vivek, Ranswamy, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, MAGA. Where does it all fit with regards to immigration? You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from Rodizio Grill in Inglewood and downtown. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Are we too focused in on the AC Sladers and the Zacks and Kelly Kapowskis? What about Screech? What about Steve Urkel? Well, Vivek Ramaswamy thought we should be focusing more on them and not so much the football stars that are out there. Do you agree with him? Can America produce the tech giants that are necessary to lead the economy, or do we have to import them? And these H-1B visas are critical. What do you think? Join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line. Let's go to Jim in Denver. Good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Hey, morning, guys. Listen, these H-1B visas are the tip of hypocrisy when you've campaigned on deporting workers. My question for you, though, however, is, if American workers are so great, why are they all so fat? I mean, don't fat people move slower? Don't they spend less time on the job because they're unhealthy? Don't they have higher healthcare costs? I mean, if I've got a fat plumber and he turns 50, I think I know my health insurance premiums triple when he turns 50. So I've got to lay that guy off, even though, he may have been doing this work for 30 years. And I've got to hire someone else. And no one else out there. We've not taught our kids that plumbing is a necessity. We've taught our kids that making money off the internet is success, right? I mean, what do we do about all the fat people? We don't like fat people. But you know what? Maybe RFK will take care of
part of the thing.
people.
And Jim, in your critique there, part of the thing that would help would be decoupling health insurance from your employment. Because then you, being the person employing the plumber, wouldn't have to make that decision because your health insurance premiums wouldn't go up. That should be something that is a burden or an advantage that is placed on the individual, not on the company. And I think that's, and again, it's a side note, but I think that's part of what we get wrong about health insurance in this country is exactly that type of a, look is that perspective.
Jim, do you agree with Vivek's critique that American culture has done this to ourselves? We're too focused on the prom queen and not the math Olympiad. And if we held stadiums full of people to celebrate the math Olympiad, our culture would be better.
Well, you've got to have someone guiding your country, and if no one's guiding your country, then they're going to chase that money, and that's what we've got. We've got this ultra capitalism, and we don't value the uterus and having children that will be future taxpayers. All we value is the person who's turned into a billionaire. And now we have billionaires telling us what we should think. And those people right there, believe me, they hate expensive labor. They're telling us they hate cheap labor. In reality, we need labor of all types to continue our businesses. Our businesses are going to shutter in this country more than you have ever seen in the past, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's people piling up at our borders, and they quite literally want to be taxpayers. But then again, we don't like school teachers who collectively bargain and want to be taxpayers either. So we hate taxpayers, we hate expensive labor, we hate cheap labor.
Jim,
there must be this Goldilocks labor out there somewhere that
I like that. That's magical.
You have in your head.
Well,
where's the magical Goldilocks labor?
Unfortunately,
that you love?
it's
you don't
free.
want your
That's
kids
the
to
thing.
be it.
It's the magical Goldilocks labor is free. And Jim, I like what you pointed out there about teachers, because I think that's part of the critique that I have here is that we have got a group of people in this country that have spent the better part of 15 years denigrating intellectualism, denigrating the idea of achievement, and denigrating teachers. And now they want to know why the nerds aren't there. Well, we've told everybody for at least 15 years, if not 20, don't be the nerd. And we've done that, and we've said the schools are bad and the teachers are bad. And so why would you ever listen to them?
Well, better yet, Bill, let's give those knuckleheads, let's give them guns, huh? How much common sense do we have there?
That's going to work out well.
Let's give them guns. Guns, baby.
Jim, I appreciate the call. Thanks so
thanks,
much.
Jim.
We'll continue this into the next hour. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Up next, Joe from Arvada. Boom.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up and are heading to work in the greatest country in history. Let's get after it. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. We're discussing Vivek Ramaswamy's tweet, essentially saying America can't produce the brain capital necessary for these tech companies, so they must rely on these H-1B visas to bring in the best and brightest from around the world to the United States of America. In doing so, he critiqued American culture, saying you're too concerned and obsessed with AC Slater and Zach from Saved by the Bell. You should be more like Screech or Urkel and quit, celebrating these prom queens. Instead, get behind the math Olympiads. Let's continue this conversation. Then we'll get to news and comment in just a second. We got Joe from Arvada. Good morning, Joe. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, morning.
Good morning. Well, I was one of those CU math days guys. I wasn't the top, but I was in there, sandwiched in the middle of some of those competitions. I think the Cherry Creek school systems really helped me in my late elementary school. And that's where I think the problem lies. If we were just importing, Oppenheimers and Einsteins to, run a atomic bomb construction or AI super brains that are going to develop the new AI generation, I do agree that we should get those super intellects from anywhere in the world that they come from.
Yeah.
But where I was working at just recently, we're importing people that are just average intellects on the B1B to run the sales department. And all the higher management positions were all imported because they immediately satisfied the diversity, equity, and inclusion. Basically, when it came to your evaluation, it was like, let's see, oh, you did great. Oh, you're white and you're a male, minus. So you never get above a certain level because the imports, the B1B people already have that. They're immediately promoted. You think it doesn't happen, but it does. And here's the thing. We have to get away from this idea. DEI is the death of our business society. It's the death of our educational society. What we have to do is promote excellence. Excellence. Why did we ever get away from that? The education, the way to get education back to snuff is to move the money back to the people that are producing superior intellects in business and in math and in science. Forget whether or not, they're inclusive. Oh my goodness. The education system has been destroyed.
Joe, what if they're prom queens? I mean, if you look at Vivek's here, he said a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Do you think he's got a fair critique, or you think he just ruined his presidential aspirations?
Well, in some ways, like I said, the superior intellects, no matter where they come from, they could be here in America, the super brains. Fine. But here's the thing that he's missing, and that is this. There's plenty of super great engineers that come from higher schools in America. But then when it's time to graduate, those super brain engineers that came from America, they want to be paid like the top of their class. Whereas the guy that is a super brain engineer in India, he's willing to take, a good income, but not super. Whereas a guy that graduated from MIT that was raised in California or went to Stanford and was raised in California, he wants to be paid super jack. And that is the difference. What we should do is do what we do whenever we tax something that gets less of something. You tax something, you're going to get less of it. So what we should do is get some incentive. For instance, no more FICA for people that are hired as the super engineers from the United States, whereas double the FICA from somebody from India. See, that'll stop these idiotic hires where they're just hiring people from a foreign country because they satisfy DEI. Instead, if you need a super brain that knows AI, and the only places he's going to get it is because he's been training in a supercomputer in India, we got to get that guy. We'll pay him more.
Now, Joe,
and we'll pay.
Joe, you're talking about DEI, but from what I'm reading in both Vivek and Elon, they're not focusing on DEI. They're not. They're saying the larger societal degradation of America is responsible for them not being able to find the intellectual engineers that they want. So is that fair? Taking the entire DEI thing about it, I want to know your reaction to what Elon and Vivek say, which is basically Americans are too dumb and lazy to do these jobs.
See, that's where I don't agree with you. It's not about being dumb and lazy. It's about this. The education system that we set up produces what we set it up to produce. Are we producing the finest in our education high schools? In other words, are we celebrating academic excellence? Are we happy that the nerd is the top guy, the valedictorian, or are we only happy that the jock is the captain of the football team? Yeah, the point that I'm saying is this: he is right that societal norms have created this lack of brains in our society here in America, whereas they're cultivating that in India. What we need to do, and it won't take long. See, this is where everybody thinks, oh, well, that's going to take generations to set up. No, it isn't. It's going to take an effort from the American people to bring their kids to intellect producing schools, not public schools. See, that's it. It won't take an entire generation. It'll take a high school class. And when I say that a high school class, for somebody going from 9th grade to 12th grade, those years could change the fabric of society. Donald Trump's presidency, if he gets the right education momentum, could change the output of the American educated alumni. See, that's what people miss. It isn't going to take forever. It's going to take between 4 and 12 years, because once those kids come to age, they're going to be competitive. The problem is that we've had, what is it now, 20 years of DEI. You're given a star for waking up and eating your oatmeal instead of being excellent in first grade. No, you have to be excellent in first grade to get that gold star, not just another moron getting his gold star for eating his chow.
Joe, sure appreciate it. Thanks so much for the call. Joe from Arvada. His line will be open 303-696-1971. Bill, we got somebody else, right?
Yeah,
Doug?
we have Derek in Golden calling us right now. We'll get to Derek real quickly right before we get to Blake. Yeah. Hey, Derek, how are you?
You're on the Jeff and Bill show. Good morning.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Really quick. So, before we get to Blake on here. Yeah. So I wanted to say that. Oh, yeah, I'm turning the radio off.
Thank you.
How are we doing? Yeah. So I wanted to say that. Yeah, a lot of these. Thank you. A lot of these people are imported from major corporations in India, and so they're bringing over thousands of, or hundreds to maybe thousands of people to do this IT work. And what it really does is, I think it undermines. So they're outsourcing, right? They're headhunting in India for people who will work like $60,000 a year, and they're taking probably 15 to 20,000. I'm not exactly 100% certain what the numbers are, but then what they're doing is they're undermining just the people that are in this country who maybe work for 80,000 a year and only want to work for the 50 to 60 hours a week. Given the fact that you're talking about importing a kind of like a people from a country that have a caste system where they're happy, and a lot of these guys end up rooming in 12 people to a house in Silicon Valley. It's
there is definitely a farming operation that's taking place here and fraud that needs to be addressed. But okay, so we're going to pay people more here in this country. I get it. So they're going to raise the cost of everything.
Well, I think that this country has to understand that if we're going to be building in this, building and manufacturing in this country, everybody is going to need to really kind of, understand that maybe possibly decoupling from China, decoupling from India is a good thing if we want to progress as a community as a whole, to make sure that we can all achieve the American dream of owning a home, having a family, buying a car versus, supporting, other corporations that are sending over workers, especially in the tech industry, to, undermine it. Because I think that we do have the intelligence to do this type of work. They just don't want to pay. And think about it, like Elon Musk, he's got an AI program that he's always just trying to improve. What does he want to pay? He wants to pay a guy, $60,000 a year, not the 80 to 100 that people who live in this country would want to pay, want to be paid.
Derek, I really appreciate the call.
Great call,
Thanks so
man.
much. Derek from Golden, his line will be open 303-696-1971. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Dave Flaherty is going to join us, founder of Magellan Strategies. He's probably Colorado's top pollster, at least in my opinion. He's the best. And we're going to talk about this lawsuit that Donald Trump has filed in Iowa against Ann Selzer, the pollster there. Is he right to file this lawsuit against a pollster? We'll get to this and more. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. It's 35 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 46 today under red flag warning. Expect high winds today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Well, I do it just because it relaxes me. It lets me think about something different from what I've been concerned about, like how to write a book, or how to finish a book, or how to work on the quarter centers problems, or what to do about the Middle East peace process or healthcare in Africa. And it's like a complete different life when I walk out of here and get in my wood shop.
That's Jimmy Carter. About 30 years ago, did a lot of good after he was voted out of office. His state funeral will be held January 9th. Carter is expected to lie in state in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. President Biden has also declared January 9th a national day of mourning. Colorado politicians praising former President Carter following his death at his home in Georgia. Governor Polis said that Carter advanced the American ideals we cherish most, including human rights, compassion, and equality. Senator Bennett called Carter a devoted man, statesman, and champion for rural communities. He'll be remembered for the Iranian hostage crisis, unfortunately, that lasted 444 days. 52 Americans were held captive, and also the gas shortage during his time in D.C. Carter worked with Habitat for Humanity after his presidency and helped communities throughout Georgia and globally for close to a decade. He was 100 years old. One person is dead and another is in the hospital following a crash in Aurora on Sunday. Two-vehicle crash happened around 5 in the morning at the intersection of 225 and East Iliff. Investigators say the occupants of the vehicle were critically hurt, with one dying at the scene. Those in the other vehicle were treated by first responders. Speed is thought to be a possible factor in the crash. A program that helped find safe parking spots for homeless individuals is coming to an end. The executive director of the Colorado Safe Parking Initiative says that there isn't enough money for the program to keep going past the end of this year. The 5-year initiative worked with other community organizations to secure parking spaces and provide services for homeless people who slept in their cars. A teen is recovering after a weekend shooting at an Aurora hotel. Police say that the 16-year-old girl walked into a local hospital with a gunshot wound On Saturday night, investigators later determined that a man was manipulating a gun at a hotel on South Abilene Street when he opened fire and shot the girl. The suspect has been identified, but not in custody on Sunday. Police are still trying to determine if the shooting was intentional. And a Colorado man is getting ready to move, and he's decided to sell a collection of Star Wars memorabilia worth millions of dollars. Jeff Jacob of Littleton has been collecting items connected to the movie for decades, starting when he was 19 years old. He has some rare collectibles, including action figures featuring a double telescoping lightsaber that was discontinued shortly after they were released in 1977.
It's too the lightsaber is too long, and so it was recalled. There are only a handful of those that are still in the package on the entire planet. Yeah, that is one of the most valuable.
Or they were too dangerous, or they just weren't realistic.
No, they were too dangerous because they said they extended too long, and of course we were stupid. Just like we were talking about last hour, we were stupid idiots going to poke each other in the eye with it. So of course, yeah, it was dumb.
You gotta take somebody's eye out.
Exactly. Yes, it wasn't even a Red Ryder BB gun. It was, Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber. Yeah, I remember those they came out and they extended, and they were only out for a little bit of time, and they yanked them all back, and I never got a hold of one. And to have one in package. Damn. I mean, I don't think there's more than a dozen of those that are in the market right now that are still in package. So dude has got some serious stuff in his collection. Yeah.
Man, no doubt. Yeah. So we may see Billy out at the first round of the auction.
If it wasn't just after Christmas.
Monday. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if I had cash, maybe.
Time.
It's an awful time.
Well, unless there's all those people who want to unload all that cash before tax time.
That's true.
Before the end of the year. First round of the auction, once again, next Monday, and it will run through January 22nd. Broncos have to beat the Chiefs coming up this Sunday to clinch a playoff spot. Patrick Mahomes not expected to start at quarterback along with a lot of the starters for Kansas City, but you can anticipate Andy Reid will do whatever he can to try to knock out the Broncos. 31 in Broomfield, 33 in Glendale, 35 in Denver. Jeff and Billy, they are back. It's Monday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. We're going to have some scattered clouds over the Front Range today. We're also going to see developing strong west and northwest winds. High wind warning in effect until late this afternoon with gusts over 50 miles an hour. High temps today will be in the upper 40s with lows middle and upper teens. For tomorrow, a little more sunshine for New Year's Eve, but a cold front will drop our temps to the middle and upper 30s. Middle and upper 30s for New Year's Day with scattered cloudiness, lows middle and upper teens back in the 40s Thursday and Friday. I'm meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Is Donald Trump right to sue Ann Selzer under the Iowa Consumer Fraud Act? She's the pollster, if you remember, that came out with that wild poll just a few days before the election saying that Donald Trump was likely to lose to Kamala Harris in Iowa. It wasn't anywhere close to being accurate. And so Donald Trump's raising concerns that the pollster was essentially colluding with the Des Moines Register in an effort to influence an election. And that violated the Iowa Consumer Fraud Act because they were knowingly engaging in fraud. This resulted in damages because people were unlikely to buy his merchandise, Trump merchandise, donate to the campaign, maybe not even turn out. And so this should be deemed essentially an in-kind campaign contribution. Now, I've spent my career in politics. I don't trust pollsters at all because I've seen them behind the scenes because they are oftentimes, serving a client, and they'll just outright lie to their client. Oh yeah, you're going to win this. It looks close. And then they lose by 20 points. And it's like, oh, my polling was way off. They just didn't want to lie to their clients. There's one pollster, really only one that I trust. And that's Dave Flaherty from Magellan Strategies, because he's honest and he gets to the truth for his clients. He did a great job for the Centennial Institute, and I've had a great appreciation for him for a long time. He joins us now to provide some insight. Dave Flaherty, founder of Magellan Strategies. Thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Can you hear me all right? Jeff, Bill, happy holidays.
Yeah, we got you good. Happy holidays to you.
I just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
I know you're
just wanted
typically.
To make sure. Yeah, no, happy holidays. This is a unique situation going on. We were really surprised. I was surprised when I saw when Ann put that out, and I'm like, oh boy, I know the effect perhaps that she measured more late voters than the overall electorate. However, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but very unique situation.
Yeah. So first of all, give us your analysis of maybe her polling. I know you're constantly doing polling. You work for private entities, campaigns, as well as public entities. You're a pro at this. You've devoted your career to this. And like I said, you do it better than anybody else I know. So from your perspective, looking at what Ann Seltzer did, do you think it was a legitimate poll?
Well, knowing Ann's methodology, and just let's give the viewers a little bit of a background on Ann's history. She worked for the Des Moines Register for a very long time before she started her company in 1996. And her methodology is using the phones, where she calls, landlines and cells and so forth. And she's had a good record. She really has. She missed the 2004 presidential election, I think, but this was a really big miss. And when I saw that poll come out that weekend, I was like, oh boy, I felt bad for her. Let me tell you why. I believe her poll was just picking up, election day voters and not the overall electorate. The other thing is polling any type of ballot election with Donald Trump on the ticket is extremely challenging. Voters, we feel there's a bias built in, especially among Republicans and conservatives or Trump-leaning voters, that they're going to not necessarily mislead, but I just always feel his electoral strength has been undermeasured, and it's historic. And that she did not perhaps make an adjustment or take that into account. And I had a feeling that she was really, gnashing her teeth on election night. And obviously that poll was her biggest miss of her career. But prior to that, she always did have a good record, Jeff, and Bill, you guys got to understand that. However, these do happen. All of us, including our firm and me, we've missed some over a very long career. But I could tell what was going on there. I was sure that this poll was very unlikely to be accurate.
Now, Donald Trump is filing a lawsuit against her. This was on purpose. She wanted to drive out Democrats in an effort to hopefully get Kamala Harris elected, suppress Republican support. As they looked at this poll, it directly affected him financially. The sales of his merchandise wasn't doing as well as a result of this. And so she was engaging in consumer fraud. What do you think about the merits of his lawsuit?
Well, I'm looking forward to see as this suit moves forward in discovery. And understand, everyone, I am not an attorney, although from being a redistricting veteran, I've been around a lot of lawyers and election lawyers over my 32 years in politics. And I think that, they will likely, perhaps, during the legal process of this case, obtain emails to try to show evidence, perhaps, that she either strayed from her, typical methodology and approach and how she processes the survey data. And I think that, it'll be interesting to see what Donald Trump's attorneys find in that process. When you began this interview, Jeff, I totally agreed with you. I know many surveys and polls that pollsters will just throw their integrity in the can for a check and put out bogus numbers on behalf of either their candidate or their client, or perhaps to have an impact on public opinion. And I don't know if Ann actually or the Des Moines Register had an agenda, but we will find out. We will definitely find out.
I mean, there's a chance they could settle. I mean, similar to Fox News and Dominion, they just don't want people picking through all the emails and stuff like that. So it's just easier to settle. We'll have to see on that as well. But Dave Flaherty, Magellan Strategies, what I consider a super pollster here in Colorado. Dave, what is polling going to look like in future presidential races as it gets harder and harder to get a hold of people on the phones? Is it going to drift towards sentiment analysis online and looking up what people are saying about candidates to try to get a sense of where the electorate is on these particular campaigns?
Well, over my many years of doing, candidate polling, head-to-head polling, and measuring support and opposition levels for candidates, image ratings, it is getting more difficult. And Donald Trump, since he was elected in 2016, and including when he was running in the Republican primary back in 2015, it has become more and more challenging to measure, honestly, in my opinion, MAGA voters. Just to summarize this election cycle, in the 7 states, I never believed Arizona, Georgia, or North Carolina were ever in play. I always believed that if I was still doing horse race polling, and I don't do that anymore, we're kind of retired from that and mostly work with public entities and doing other types of public opinion research. But if I was working for, some of our former, employers like Americans for Prosperity, the Republican National Committee, I would have, whatever I measured on Donald Trump's strength, added 3 points, just put it on top. Because I really do believe it's difficult to measure MAGA. Now, on top of that, the dynamics of the 2024 election with such strong problems regarding inflation and different dynamics than in 2020 when it was more about COVID, and if I had done that, I think we would have done a pretty good job of coming in there. However, I did not think he was going to sweep Michigan and Wisconsin. And clearly, when you look at the results, is Donald Trump, in measuring Donald Trump's strength, a unique bias that pollsters will have a challenge with? I believe the answer is yes. Now, let's say 4 years from now, J.D. Vance against whoever the Democrat nominee is, will J.D. Vance have that kind of under-measurement in the public polling? I believe it is very possible, and I believe that it's just a new dynamic when it comes to survey research in that area. So I'll stop there if you have some questions about that. But it may not sound scientific, but I've always felt that Donald Trump, since he's been on the scene, measuring support among his voters, or perhaps silent Trump voters, has been very challenging to do.
Dave Flaherty, founder of Magellan Strategies, I've got a question on that one. Do you think that it is harder to poll MAGA voters, or is it harder to poll a specific demographic of voters? And the ones I'm thinking of are those under 35, because their behavior towards tech and their behavior towards phones in general are vastly different than those above 35. What I look for mostly are things like landlines. The number of times that someone plus 35 or under 35 will answer a phone number they don't recognize. Is it more a function of being hard to survey MAGA, or more of a function of being hard to survey those under 35?
Great question, Bill. One, I do believe that it is just very difficult to measure and interview MAGA and get an answer. I feel that their contempt for popular media and other areas and their populism, I do think there's just certain personality traits or sentiment among that population subgroup where they're like, oh, I got a pollster on the line and I'm going to undermeasure because I don't know. I would say something where they look forward to surprising the general electorate. So I do believe MAGA is tough, number one. Number two, on 18 to 34, excellent question. By far, they are the most challenging population to measure. And they don't answer the phone. And, just between you and I, we don't interview those folks. We interview them using MMS texts, where we have an image and we try to entice them to, they're more likely to obviously be on the phones. I'm sure your listeners can understand that, who have a couple of teenagers like myself. But no matter what method of engagement you're trying to get their attention, it's more challenging to do. But I would also change that. The amazing thing about the 24 election, for the first time since 2008 with Barack Obama's election, 40,000 fewer 18 to 34-year-olds turned out to vote than 4 years ago. That's the first time we've ever seen a decline in that population subgroup, and not, maintaining their 20 27% of turnout in a presidential election. At the same time, nearly 90,000 more seniors turned out to vote. And I do think that there was a lack of enthusiasm and interest in this election among 18 to 34s voters, which makes it even more challenging, in the state of Colorado. So both of those populations are very difficult to go after. But I really, phone-only surveys, to me, you are not giving your population enough opportunity to participate in the poll, regardless of their interest level, when your methodology of data collection is just phones. That's why we're heavily vested in dual mode, where we will do a splash of phones, but a lot more MMS texting, because it's just, we find better engagement, using those methods.
Talking with Dave Flaherty, he's the founder of Magellan Strategies. You can learn more at magellanstrategies.com. They survey government, school districts, special districts, as well as public policy groups. We use them at the Centennial Institute at Colorado Christian University. Dave, just a few more questions. Going back to the Trump lawsuit, if a pollster releases a poll and it's not an honest assessment, the numbers were fiddled with, or the strategy or the audience they interviewed was deliberately done in such a way as to help a particular candidate or a campaign, would that be considered an in-kind campaign contribution from your perspective?
Not being an attorney, Jeff, and of course, that's a tough one to answer. In my 32 years of politics, across the country and in around Colorado, yes, I do believe that, it is somewhat of an in-kind contribution. Now, again, I am not an attorney, and I am not a professional opinion regarding the Consumer Protection Act. And what I've learned, basically, that the Donald Trump's legal team is trying to remedy here in this lawsuit regarding consumer protection, whereas will-fill fraud, was there an injury? The injury, I'm assuming, is going to have more credence on Donald Trump's merchandise sales going down, etc. But yes, polling can be an incredibly valuable tool to any candidate's campaign. It can you can slow down donations to your opponent. You can sort of freeze and change behavior of an electorate that will result, and have an impact on an election. There's no doubt about it. So I do believe, yes, it is an in-kind contribution of some kind, if it can be, put that way. However, this is such a unique lawsuit, Jeff, regarding, where they're talking about merchandise of being the injured party rather than the outcome of the election. I'm really just curious how the courts are going to, deal with the evidence and perhaps create some sort of new jurisprudence, if you will, under a legal strategy or so forth. And it would make a lot of pollsters out there, because, mostly what's left out there's a couple of self-endorsing Democrat, Republican public pollsters, but a lot of these, higher institutions, that you've all seen polls coming from, just Quinnipiac and, all these other Siena poll that pairs up with the New York Times. It's like, hey, if now all of a sudden you have legal jeopardy where you have a scenario that did just happen in Iowa happen, and it's very likely to happen again. I mean, it's going to happen. Does that cause pause for these organizations to no longer do public polling? I don't know.
Now, Dave Flaherty, founder of Magellan Strategies, I've got a question for you. I know that Magellan no longer does horse race polling, and again, you're not a lawyer. But how would you classify those horse race polls? Are they commercial speech or are they political speech, in your opinion?
I would assume it's more political speech than commercial speech. And to try to be an attorney and achieve, showing injury to a candidate based on a public survey, I think a well-researched legal team could make some pretty interesting arguments there that we lost this election because of either, let's say you had a lack of resources and candidate A really flooded the zone with bogus polling, you know what I mean? And perhaps that depressed turnout of candidate B, or who knows, knowing voter behavior and understanding how turnout happens, and we still do a lot of that here, a Republican, and that's what I did for my nearly 15 years in Washington. I definitely think it would be an intriguing case where you could find a court that would look at the evidence and the arguments on that, but more on political speech perhaps rather than commercial. In my opinion, commercial. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, and one of the real factors in this is the Des Moines Register, right? Because if you're out there just running polls or whatever, people release polls. There's candidates have their own internal polling. They release it to get some benefit. But here you have the Des Moines Register, and I've said this for years, that news agencies should be sued for fraud because they're not doing news. They're doing activism. They just dress it up as news. And then, but they have an agenda that they're pushing. Sometimes they have candidates that they want to have win. And when they claim that it's, quote, news, as if it's general, nonpartisan, impartial, well, then I think they are lying to the people, American people. And that there's a right there to challenge it as potential fraud. So I think Des Moines Register is going to be a major factor in this lawsuit.
Definitely, Jeff. But I also feel like there's a lot of policy debate out there where a lot of news organizations, that clearly may have a political bias, where you can do and present polling around policy issues that can severely impact how your legislature perhaps may vote on a legislative proposal that would, obviously, benefit one group of the population versus the other. I mean, not to expand this beyond candidate, horse race polling, but without question. And I think we've seen that from time to time, and what I find discouraging, just to be very honest with you, unfortunately, is that, back in the day when we used to release a lot of public polling in 2008, 10, and 12, especially some Republican primary polling work, that any media organization that did not have standards where you must have every single part of that survey published so it is transparent, the crosstabs, the methodology, how the questions were asked, in what order they were asked. And what is really disappointing at times is that even when it is a survey that is sponsored by the news organization, it's like, you better put everything out there to give the public a fair and transparent opportunity to evaluate the research in a manner. Not that they're all going to be looking for that, but I find that it's disappointing that some of our news organizations just put out a survey and it's just a top line document with no explanation of, how they did the survey. And it's just published because they're pleased with the outcome of the results, showing a support level or an opposition level for a policy, that is clearly perhaps going to influence how a legislature will vote, or, or Congress for that matter. But that's a conversation for the other day. But, because political, not political polling, public opinion polling in the public arena can definitely influence, behavior. And question is how far and where do you go over the line is something that perhaps may be some new judgments out of this Iowa case. So it'll be very interesting to follow.
We'll continue to follow it, and I hope we can have Dave Flaherty back to give us some updates as this case continues. Dave Flaherty, founder of Magellan Strategies. You can learn more about Magellan Strategies at magellanstrategies.com. Your trusted survey research partner. They do a great job for governments, school districts, special districts, and public policy groups. Again, we use them with the Centennial Institute. Dave Flaherty, thank you so much for your time today and joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Absolutely, gentlemen. Have a happy new year. Great to be on, and we look forward to hearing you in the new year. Have a good day.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave Flaherty. He's going to go hit the ski slopes, I bet. He's a passionate skier. All right. Would love to hear from you. I appreciate this lawsuit, not so much because of the pollster, but as I mentioned, because of the Des Moines Register. I am tired of news companies acting like activists and not reporting the news. It's just, I don't call myself a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I am a conservative activist who happens to have a radio show. So I'm a pundit. I speak on this stuff. And when news companies run out there and say that this is news, when it's really just activism, I think they should be challenged on it. But I'd love to hear from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Folks texting in saying, no, this is an attack on First Amendment rights. Do you agree with them? Love to hear from you. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Bill, what do you think of the lawsuit?
I think it's
Donald
laughable.
Trump against the Iowa pollster.
Yeah, I think it's laughable because I can't understand what he's trying to do. Is he's trying to force this into commercial speech. And this is obviously, polls are obviously political speech. No, polls are political speech. And political speech is held to a higher standard than commercial speech. Conducting a poll can't be considered necessarily fraud or deception in the context of his consumer protection law. It is not talking about the sale of a good or a service. And Donald Trump's not the consumer.
He's making the argument he lost out on sales as a result of this.
Sales of what?
Merchandise.
So, but hang on a sec. The poll is about whether or not he's going to be president. The poll doesn't say anything about his merchandise. Doesn't say anything about anything he's selling. The poll can't be connected to him losing sales reasonably on any sort of merchandise when the poll never discusses, never takes a temperature of, nor does take an opinion on any of his merchandise. It's not like going out there and saying, is the Ford F-150 America's best truck, and then taking polls. That's a consumer poll. This is not. This is political speech. He's not, and he's also not a consumer of the product. So he's not even involved in the transaction, and he's trying to stick his nose into this. No, this is laughably bad. Laughably bad.
The pollster, I'm not so concerned about. I like the lawsuit against the Des Moines Register.
For what?
Because if you're specifically lying to people, like in an effort to promote a candidate, and you're going out as a news agency, I do think you're committing consumer fraud.
Now, here's the thing: that wouldn't be consumer fraud. But the issue is this: you started out with the idea that they are intentionally lying to people. That's something that's something that both you and Donald Trump are going to have to prove. Is the intentional lying inside of it?
They're going to have to get that in discovery.
Yeah, and and here's the idea of inside of that complaint. Donald Trump doesn't have anything as far as a shred of proof showing that the numbers were manipulated, that things were done incorrectly, or this was done in order to hurt Donald Trump. It's just his feelings are hurt and he's mad about it.
Dominion went after Fox and was able to find text messages that said they knew it was wrong. That's why Fox celebrated or settled on this.
Yeah, settled because
there were text messages, right?
Yeah, but they also had information beforehand that Dominion, there were communications prior that Dominion was pointing out, you're incorrect on this. You're not telling the truth on this. Here is the proof showing that we did not do X, Y, and Z that you were reporting on the air. None of that exists here. None of that. And again, this is a poll. No, this is a poll versus a news story that was done over the course of weeks and months. That's a totally
the evidence that
idea.
they're starting with. The evidence that they're starting with is that the numbers were so wildly off.
Yeah,
like
I know,
not just kind of off, but like grossly off.
So
they're looking at that going, was there fraud here? That's what they want. Discovery.
Again, the poll can't be wrong. She can't just be wrong. Because she was wrong, she now has to have something nefarious. That's the thing, is that, and even in your description, you jump to the idea that the Des Moines Register had a dog in the fight and wanted to denigrate Trump. That is incredibly difficult to prove inside of this context, especially given Ann Seltzer and her methodology and the stuff that she has released so far. Yes, it's incredibly difficult, especially when you've looked at some of the things that she's done post-election. And she's come out and been very open with things that she got wrong. She said, here's what I missed. Here's what we did inside the poll that was incorrect. Here are things that we did not do correctly. Yes. And in fact, she's retired from it because of it. She hasn't gone out, and she hasn't. I know she said that beforehand. This is going to fail. This lawsuit is going to fail.
There's going to be discovery, like Dave Flaherty said. All right, QC Kinetics. I want to talk to you about our friends there. It's just not normal. The pain caused from chronic joint pain day after day, but some of you have dealt with that pain for so long, it's become your new normal. Short-term fixes are not working. Make the decision now to say no. You're not going to live another minute with it. Get moving again in 2025 with help from QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine and joint preservation. Yes, you can revitalize your joints with advanced ortho biological treatments at QC Kinetics. No steroids, no drugs, no surgery. This is the future of medicine, using an array of natural solutions like PRP to attack the pain from arthritis. Tens of thousands of people with pain have discovered these cellular treatments and are living life again without that constant pain in their joints. Want to learn more about how you can refresh your joints, get lasting relief with these amazing treatments? Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation and deal with joint pain now so you can make the most of the new year. Call QC Kinetics at 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986 with locations in Aurora, Superior, Highlands Ranch in the Springs. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill, I think, this poll, especially after this last election, polling, and because the demographics have changed so much, is just going to go away. I think you're going to see more sentiment analysis. And you and I have talked a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Can it be manipulated? Yeah. But they're building AI that can, for corporations that can go out there and just kind of mine all of the data posted on X, Instagram about how people feel about a particular, corporation or candidate, and then there determine how they're doing. I think that's going to be best.
I think so too.
I think that was Blake Olson.
I think so too, and I don't know why we heard him do that. I don't understand. Okay, we'll do that. I have no idea why that's going on there. Okay. The odd thing, I think polling, it's going to be difficult to do that and then to correct based on the polling. And I also think that those AI type polls that we've talked about, if they don't accurately represent the electorate that comes out to vote, they're going to be wrong as well. And that's when I talked about Ann Seltzer correcting for what happened afterwards. But, we got to get going here. I just noticed I didn't have the bumper music up, so we got to go. We'll be right back. Yeah.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from Rodizio Grill in Inglewood and downtown. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up and are heading to work in the greatest country in history. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Does Dave Williams deserve a second term as the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party? Well, I posted one of these polls as to whether or not Dave should be elected to another term. Now, this is like Colorado's primary. It's open to everybody to vote, so you can't take this as a direct analysis of Republican primary voters or Republican activists or even Republicans. This is just everybody out in Twitter sphere. 638 votes on my X account on this poll, 90% saying no. Interesting. Well, a fan of Dave Williams in the direction of the Republican Party is Hugo Chavez Reyes, known as the Hispanic Patriot. And boy, oh boy, did he call Trump right when we were concerned that, or at least I was, that this might go 50-50 this last election. He texted in, Jeff, don't worry, Trump's going to win this big. And he did. And he's saying now Dave Williams is going to win big a second term. So we're going to talk to Hugo in just a minute. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. 38 and a little windy out there in Denver, expecting a high of 46 today under a red flag warning, expecting high winds until later this afternoon. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
Well, I do it just because it relaxes me. It lets me think about something different from what I've been concerned about, like how to write a book, or how to finish a book, or how to work on the quarter sentence problems, or what to do about the Middle East peace process or healthcare in Africa. And it's like a complete different life when I walk out of here and get in my wood shop.
That's former President Jimmy Carter about 30 years ago. He did a lot of good after he was voted out of office. His state funeral will be held January 9th. Carter is expected to lie in state in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. President Biden has also declared January 9th as National Day of Mourning. He died Sunday at the age of 100. One of the best things that he did after leaving D.C. was publicly exposing the sex slave trafficking trade industry worldwide, and he did it on Letterman.
And 80% of those slaves sold are young girls who are being sold into the sex slavery. And this occurs, about 100,000 of them are in the United States, not sold across international borders. Atlanta is a key of a human trafficking or slavery trade.
How and why would it be? Well, how and why does it exist anywhere? How and why would Atlanta be the center of it in the United States?
I think because we have the largest airport on earth, and people come there from all over the southern part of the hemisphere, where girls can be bought cheaper than in other parts. In the southern part of a hemisphere, in Latin America, and also say in Africa and so forth, in some parts of Asia, they can buy a girl for $1,000.
Governor Polis said Carter advanced the American ideals we cherish most, including human rights, compassion, and equality. Senator Bennett called Carter a devoted man, statesman, and champion for rural communities. He'll be remembered for the Iranian hostage crisis that lasted 442 days, 52 Americans held captive, and also the gas shortage during his time as president. David Flaherty, founder of Magellan Strategies in Colorado, on with Jeff and Billy last hour, discussing DJT's lawsuit against the Des Moines Register pollster Ann Seltzer, who was way off before the election.
And I think that, it'll be interesting to see what Donald Trump's attorneys find in that process. When you began this interview, Jeff, I totally agreed with you. I know many surveys and polls that pollsters will just throw their integrity in the can for a check and put out bogus numbers on behalf of either their candidate or their client, or perhaps to have an impact on public opinion. And I don't know if Ann actually or the Des Moines Register had an agenda, but we will find out. We will definitely find out.
And how about CBS's Jan Crawford calling out her own network this morning?
One of the things we also do in the year-end correspondence roundtable is dig into what was undercovered or underreported. Jan?
Undercovered, underreported. That would be, to me, Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline that became undeniable in the televised debate.
At the presidential debate with Donald Trump.
Unquestioned. And, it's starting to emerge now that his advisors kind of managed his limitations, been reported in the Wall Street Journal for 4 years. And yet he insisted that he could still run for president. We should have much more forcefully questioned whether he was fit for office for another 4 years, which could have led to a primary for the Democrats. It could have changed the scope of the entire election. Yet still, incredibly, we read in the Washington Post that his advisors are saying that he regrets that he dropped out of the race.
They should all be fired. Police say 3 suspects are in custody after an alleged robbery in Denver was followed by a standoff with police in Englewood. Denver police began looking for the suspects Sunday afternoon after the robbery in the 2200 block of South Colorado Boulevard. The getaway vehicle was located in Englewood, and the suspects ran into a home on South Incas Street. The suspects were taken into custody several hours later, and charges are pending. Bowl games continue today, tomorrow, and the next day, and the college football national championship playoffs continue tomorrow. Broncos have to beat the Chiefs coming up this Sunday in order to clinch a playoff spot. Patrick Mahomes probably won't start at quarterback along with a lot of the offensive starters. 35 in Arvada, 37 in Lone Tree, 38 in Denver. And Jeff and Billy continue on Monday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. We're going to have some scattered clouds over the Front Range today. We're also going to see developing strong west and northwest winds. High wind warning in effect until late this afternoon with gusts over 50 miles an hour. High temps today will be in the upper 40s with lows middle and upper teens. For tomorrow, a little more sunshine for New Year's Eve, but a cold front will drop our temps to the middle and upper 30s. Middle and upper 30s for New Year's Day with scattered cloudiness, lows middle and upper teens back in the 40s Thursday and Friday. I'm meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, this is going to be a hot one. I put a poll up on X. Should Dave Williams serve another term as Colorado GOP chairman? And like I mentioned, this is not at all limited to Republicans. So Jared Polis probably voted in this, but you never know. 638 votes, no, at 90%. Now, one of the guys that has a great pulse on grassroots conservatism and Republican Party, and he demonstrated it during this last election when I was looking at the news and the polls, and I'm going, oh no, this may go 50-50. I'm not sure Donald Trump is going to win this. And then he texts and goes, Jeff, don't worry, Donald Trump's going to win this in a landslide, and he did. And then shortly thereafter, he texts back and says, and Dave Williams will be reelected again, easily. Don't worry. Is Hugo Chavez Rey. He's also known as the Hispanic Patriot. He's got his own podcast there. Hugo, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning, guys. How y'all doing?
We're good. We're good. So, Hugo, give me a sense of where you think grassroots conservatives and Republicans are on Dave Williams' leadership of the Colorado Republican Party.
Well, I want to couch this thing with first of all, there's no official word yet on who the candidates are, and from my understanding, Dave has not officially announced that he's running yet for re-election. So we can start from that perspective. But my opinion, based on what what's been going on in the party and outside the party with the detractors and what I call lovingly the coup crowd that tried to oust the leadership this past summer. You know, if Dave does decide to run and the rest of the leadership goes with him, you know, my opinion would be that he would win because he's got the support of the majority of the Central Committee. And the Central Committee is going to be interesting to see how it shakes out here in the next couple months with all the reorganizational meetings in the counties. But my guess is that the makeup of the Central Committee is going to be fairly similar to what we have now. Maybe some new faces, but new faces that will, you know, side with the current leadership. So, you know, we have to look at the big picture, and that is what took place this past summer was unprecedented in my 40 plus years of activism in the party. I've never seen such activities as took place this past summer, and it was perpetrated by a minority group that decided that, you know, they knew better and they were going to use lies and innuendos to try to oust the leadership. And of course, it failed miserably. And now we're probably looking at some individual litigation that's going to take place. Some of these people that tried to perpetrate that coup are going to be deposed. So it's going to be a continuing battle. But coming up on the election in March, there is no official candidate slate as of yet, at least not that I've seen. And but my opinion would be that if Dave does decide to continue, then that he would have support of the Central Committee.
Talking with Hugo Chavez. Talking with Hugo Chavez Ray, also known as the Hispanic Patriot. So the supporters of Dave Williams, what do you think they point to as the reason Dave should serve a second term?
Well, Dave, first of all, let's start with the controversy that erupted. Dave stood up for what is our party platform, plain and simple. That's all he did. And for some reason, that ruffled some feathers, and that's how this whole mess began. So Dave has been under attack from the day that we elected him 2 years ago. So it's to me, it's the same past group of failed leadership that was behind that whole movement. You know, we call them the establishment crowd, the people that want to continue the same type of mentality moving forward with the party, and that is that we appease, you know, people who are not really Republicans. And I say that because to me, in my personal opinion, if a person is a Republican and presents themselves as a Republican, they should stand behind the party platform. And if that's not the case, then how can they claim to be a Republican? You can't go against the basics of what the party stands for, and that is voted in by the people within the party, and then claim to be a strong Republican. That just doesn't add up. So it's a basic what do you call misunderstanding, I guess, if you will, from people that didn't like Dave from the very beginning, and those who want to keep the status quo from past failed leadership. You know,
I think what I've also seen the argument being we were losing under Ken Buck, we lost under KBB, and now we have gotten some wins in this last election. But a critique coming against Dave Williams, and we've heard it on this show, is that there's too much division. There's too much brokenness. He hasn't been able to bring people together. He ran in a primary against another Republican, and you had folks like Gabe Evans that won and are heading to Congress that have called for his resignation. So can Dave unify the party?
Well, Dave alone can't do anything. It takes the people within the party to unite and move forward agendas. The very people who claim that Dave is causing the division are the ones causing the division. Okay, let's be real about that. There was very little division before this controversy erupted, and this group that got together and decided that they knew better were going to oust the leadership in an illegal manner, I might add, and they failed miserably. So the people of the party spoke. Okay, so this mantra that they keep pushing that Dave is causing the division is just a flat out lie. The division is coming from the other side, not from Dave.
How about, and we're talking to Hugo Chavez Ray, how about the notion of that there wasn't a lot of support to state house, state senate candidates, congressional candidates? We heard that from folks that have run at the congressional level. And even last week, we had House Republican leadership on that just said, well, we didn't see the state party out there very much. We were pretty much left on our own, and each candidate was left on their own to try to do their work to win these campaigns. Do you think that under Dave Williams' leadership that the Colorado Republican Party is providing enough resources to local candidates to win?
Let's just start with the fact that the state party's job is not to run people's campaigns. It's their job to support candidates who have won their primaries and become candidates for their particular races. And the state party did their job in that regard. So what they're saying from the other side is just a flat out lie. I'm sorry, I can't call it anything else, but it's coming from people who are aligned with this group that I'm calling the coup crowd. It's just a flat out lie, and they create this false narrative to try to confuse people who are not in tune with what's really going on. The state party was doing their job in supporting the candidates. I know particularly certain people within the leadership who were sending out almost daily emails and looking for ways to support candidates, inviting them to events and helping them find places to deliver their message. So I'm not buying that big lie there that the state party was doing nothing to help candidates. That's a lie.
Talking to Hugo Chavez Ray, also known as the Hispanic Patriot. By the way, you can listen to his podcast by going to HispanicPatriot.com, HispanicPatriot.com. So, Hugo, if Dave Williams goes to the administration, that's one route that he could go, and has built strong relationships within the Trump administration, the MAGA world. Do you see anybody else willing to step up and run the Colorado Republican Party? Is there anyone that you'd like to see in that position?
I'm reserving my opinion on that right now. As I said, I have not seen any name officially as a candidate. I've heard rumblings and rumors and things from candidates from both sides, but officially I have not seen anybody's name pop up as an official candidate. So we've got our county reorganizational meetings in February, and then the state assembly in March, where the new leadership would be elected. So I'm guessing, in past races, usually we know who the candidates are going to be by mid-January. And then we can go from there. Personally, I hope Dave runs again. I think we need to continue the current leadership. It has demonstrated that their methods were effective. We brought in more Hispanic voters. We averted the Democrats taking supermajority in the House, and I believe that that progress is being made. But as long as this other crowd continues with their lies and innuendos, which I hope is going to end with this litigation that's pending, then I hope we can move forward and work on the things that are important to the party. There are people out there that don't really care about that. They only care about their little agenda. I have confronted several of them straight on, and none of them can ever come up with anything but lies. And when I challenge them, they start with the name calling and the name and the labeling and all of that. So some of them are just out for their own best interest. Some of them don't know what they're talking about, and some of them are just minions that follow them like little lemmings and don't pay attention to the truth. They've created their narrative, and they're not going to budge from it.
Now, Hugo Chavez-Ray joining Jeff and Bill live, a Hispanic patriot. You've heard his voice on the airwaves a number of times. We're talking about the re-election prospects of Dave Williams for the Colorado GOP. Question I want to ask you, Hugo, in your opinion, if Dave has been so effective, why would he want to step away? And what I'm saying is, when you were just talking about the people that have been against Dave, that they're looking for they're putting themselves first. They're looking for themselves to get ahead. Couldn't I make that same argument that after these wins that you have laid out, Dave Williams steps away from party leadership and goes and joins the administration or something else? Isn't he chasing what is best for him and not holding on to what is best for the Colorado GOP? And the second question on that is, could we possibly, if Dave Williams has been such a strong, forward-thinking leader and that his strategy has been so solid, why and how can we trust anybody else to be able to execute it? Aren't we just saying that the Colorado GOP is headed for more turmoil and more losses if Dave steps away?
Well, to the first point, politics is an interesting business, as we all know. People involved in politics have their personal agendas, and they also have their thoughts on what should or shouldn't be done within, say, the state GOP. I'm not going to question Dave's motives regarding, what he may or may not have in mind for moving forward. But, the human nature steps in sometimes and at times are going to pop up and say, who would be willing to put themselves and their family through that again if that's under consideration? They raked Dave, who I consider to be a good man, through the coals, and that can take its toll on people. So if it was me, I'd probably fight strongly and go after these people that tried to undo the leadership of this party in a very vicious and incoherent manner, and I would try to continue on. But I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I guess nobody besides Dave and his inner circle may know whether there are prospects for other positions available, and maybe that's what's holding up any type of announcement. But who could blame him, if he wanted to pursue other opportunities? I mean, that's not a knock on Dave. That's just an opportunity that presents itself.
Yeah,
and,
but Hugo, isn't that the same critique you were leveling against people that were against Dave, that they are just looking out for themselves, and it's okay on either side? But that was just a critique. And the other question I've got is some of the candidates that ended up winning, some of the candidates that Dave Williams can point at on the roster and say, look at what I did. I have these wins. Those were candidates that Dave did not support in the primary, and there are questions about how much the party supported them during the general. Why in the world would those candidates that the state party came out in the primary and said, nope, we choose someone else, why would those winners now support a Dave Williams-led Colorado GOP?
because of the system that's in place. That Dave did nothing wrong in the primary. He did what the Central Committee directed him to do, which was to support candidates that were supported by the state GOP, and the edict, so to speak, that came out of the Central Committee was that we could endorse candidates in the primary. Now we can argue about whether that's good or bad. That's a personal.
Hugo, I want to stop you right there. The critique that I've got, though, is I understand the idea of the Central Committee coming out and Dave Williams making the endorsements. The issue being there were people that the Central Committee and Dave Williams endorsed that lost. The people that won, some of the wins that Dave Williams and the Colorado GOP can claim are people that the Central Committee and Dave Williams himself did not support in the primary. And the question I have is, why in the world would any of those candidates that were on the wrong side of the primary endorsement ever lift a finger to do anything for the Colorado GOP? That when they were going through the primary, the team decided to pick sides. So why now would I come back as a winning candidate and be gracious enough to work with the Colorado GOP when just a few months earlier, they told me I wasn't good enough? Explain that one to me.
So you're saying that if you don't get your way, you take your marbles and go home. No.
What I'm saying is if the party comes out and says, you're not the one we want, and then you win, why then are you going back to that team that told you were the least desirable one to go back and help them win some more? They already told you weren't going to be the winner. So why would you ever go back and try to help them again?
Because that was the primary. There's the primary and there's the general election. So those are two different things. Just because you don't support a candidate in a primary doesn't mean you don't support them in a general. It's the same thing for you and
Hugo,
I.
I understand that, but Hugo, the issue is that the Colorado GOP said this other candidate is better than the person who won. And so you understand that the idea that the Colorado GOP, the party themselves, chose a loser, and then the person that won wasn't the choice of the party. How then can we say that the party, one, makes decent choices, and then two, should be supported by those people they called losers inside the primary? How does that work?
Well, again, it goes back to primary versus general. When you and I vote in a primary, we pick our selected candidate. And if that candidate does not end up being successful in the primary, then we find the next person that we want to support in the general. And that's how the politics works in a state party. You have a primary session and you have a general election session. So just because you don't support somebody in a primary doesn't mean you can't support them in a general. And that's exactly what happened. The state party got behind every one of the candidates that were selected through the primary process.
I would disagree that. I would disagree with that. I don't want to go into debating that, but I have information from behind the scenes from a number of candidates that the support they feel they received from the state party was minimal at best. At best, they felt they were ignored in large parts because they weren't the choice in the primary.
And that's false, because what they're doing is they're conflating, and these people that you're talking about, and I happen to know a couple of them, basically are part of the crew that tried to oust the leadership in the summertime, because I was at those meetings and I saw who was at those meetings. So
yeah, but Hugo, wouldn't it be logical to assume that if you were trying to oust the leadership then wouldn't support you in the general? That would be logical to assume. It wouldn't be the other way around. It'd be weird. It would be weird to see the other thing come around. But that's not the information I'm receiving from campaigns. I'm receiving that they weren't supported. And we had people that were interviewed on the airwaves here before the general, and they were saying they weren't being supported from the states.
I've heard them all, Bill.
So you're saying they were lying?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair.
Hugo, we're talking with Hugo Chavez Reyes, the Hispanic Patriot. You can listen to his podcast at HispanicPatriot.com. Hugo, if Eli Bremer wins and becomes the chairman of the Republican Party, would you support him as chairman and get behind him and try to unite the party?
Knowing what I know about that man, 100% absolutely not.
Why is that?
Because he's a grifter, in my opinion. He's a liar. He's all about himself, and he has no intention of doing anything that's going to further this party. If you want division, go ahead and elect a guy like that to lead this party and see where we go.
But wouldn't it be upon you to try to heal the division that's taken place? It seems like we're always putting the label of divider and division on other people. What's the role and responsibility of Dave Williams supporters to try to unify the party if someone like Eli Bremer wins?
It's similar to, what's been taking place with President Trump over the last 8 years. When you have such vitriol and such animosity going against your leadership, and then those people want to somehow garner support from the people that they opposed and basically called out for a number of years. Is that going to be effective? Is that going to be something that a person can do? Personally, I don't think so. I can only speak for myself. And I can tell you from what I know about the man, Mr. Bremer, I would never, ever be able to put my efforts behind that guy, because I know exactly what he's about, and a lot of other people do too. So no. First of all, I don't think that's even a viable option, number one, and I seriously doubt that he would ever get elected. But in the hypothetical question that you posed, the answer for me is no.
Talking to Hugo Chavez Reyes, the Hispanic Patriot, his website, HispanicPatriot.com. I got to give Hugo credit on this. He called the Trump election. He knows grassroots conservatives. And right now he's saying that if Dave Williams was up for a second term, he'd easily walk in and be elected chairman again. Hugo, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thank you, man, and Happy New Year.
All right, Happy New Year, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks. We'll continue to track all this. This is going to be the big debate within the Republican Party in the next few months. I don't like to engage in the Civil War for a few reasons. One, my focus is on the radical left and the destruction that they bring to this state. And I'm happy if anybody wants to be on the effort of trying to address the destruction of the radical left here. But I also worked for the state party. I did so in 2013, coming off the Romney operation, when we developed all this data and outreach and coalitions, and came over. And at that point, the chairman was Ryan Call. And I just remember the division that was taking place then. And we've gone through just, Ryan Call, Steve House, there's somebody else in there. You've had Ken Buck, KBB. And it just seems like the internal divisions haven't been helpful from my perspective. And I want a party, or at least a chairman, leadership of the party, that can unify folks together and really attack the destructive elements of the radical left in this state. So I give both sides the opportunity, the chance, and I hope they will. We'll hopefully have Dave Williams on if he chooses to run again to make his case for the second term. And those that are running will also be welcome here to be able to share their perspectives as well. So that's the place we're going to. I think I did a pretty good job running the Western Conservative Summit for 8 years, where people all felt like they could be a part of it.
Yeah,
because
the show is going to be something where both sides, both sides are going to be allowed, and I'm trying to build a conservative movement
that really attacks what the problem is, which isn't each other. It's the radical left, and so both sides can be here to share their perspectives.
Yeah. I need to know, Jeff, what I really need to know is, because this is like my first Civil War, what color coats are we supposed to wear? That's what I need to know. Someone's going to tell me that, because I don't have that in my wardrobe. I just need to know.
So give us a call. I'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on Dave Williams. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line. Speaking of Dan Caplis Law, I want to talk to you about my good friend, who I pray one day will be in civic leadership. He's already changing the state for better, but I think he'd do a great job in elected office. That's Dan Caplis. I've known Dan for well over a decade. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. Look, Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Kaplis, the son of a police officer, a former seminarian, who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than that, Dan is a real winner in the courtroom. Listen to this. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. In fact, Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm. For serious cases, Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help and you don't want to wait till after the accident to try to Google Dan Kaplis Law, so just put his phone number in your contacts. So when you're dealing with police and first responders, firefighters, paramedics, God forbid you have somebody heading to the hospital, and then you got insurance and maybe somebody else is injured, all that chaos, you can quickly pull up and get Dan Kaplis Law on your side right away. Okay? Here's their phone number, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts about Dave Williams in a second term as Colorado GOP chairman. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Wrapping up our conversation with Hugo Chavez Ray, a supporter. If Dave Williams decides to run for a second term of Colorado Republican chairman, somebody opposed to Dave Williams is Joy Overbeck. She joins us now. Joy, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Hey, Jeff. Hi, Billy. Yeah, I'd just like to say that Hugo just came up with a raft of nonsense, none of which is true. What happened with Dave Williams is for the first time in over 100 years, the Central Committee, under Dave's tutelage and insistence, decided to endorse candidates before the primary. We never do that. The party is always neutral in the primary, and that has led to so much rancor and destructive infighting that it just has to change. It has to change. Also, as I think Billy noted, in the 14 races in which the party endorsed, rather in the 18 races in which the party endorsed candidates and supported the candidates that they endorsed pre-primary, 14 of those 18 lost big time. And especially Dave Williams lost among the people that he knows that know him best, which is the El Paso Republicans. He lost 2-1 to Jeff Crank. We could have lost a new seat that we gave Trump because of Dave Williams. Dave Williams lobbied against Gabe Evans by spending tens of thousands of dollars of our donor money in the Republican Party to send out postcards absolutely criticizing and lying about Gabe Evans pre-primary, so that Republicans would vote against Gabe Evans. This is just unconscionable. The party that actually is lobbying against, trying to destroy its own best candidates, is just doomed. And that's what Dave Evans, why do I keep saying that? That's what Dave Williams is doing to our party.
Joy,
it's unconscionable.
If someone was to step up and run, who'd you like to see become the new chairperson of the Colorado Republican Party?
I just don't really know at this point. It's in such shambles because of Dave Williams and Hope Scheppelman, who are doing nothing about this terrible situation with Jenna Griswold and her leak of passwords, which could have,
didn't they expose that to the media?
Yeah, they'd exposed him to the media, and then they did nothing. They've done nothing. I just published a new piece in Rocky Mountain Voice about this, and I sent it to you. Maybe I can be on later and discuss it a little bit. It's really a huge danger, and they're lying about that too. So the party is doing nothing about anything. As you guys kind of semi pointed out, all of the Republican candidates who won their primaries, all of them are saying this is in the House, the House in DC. All of them called for Dave Williams to resign because they're getting no support. In fact, all they get is destruction from the party. He sent out terrible mailer postcards, again using our party money, donation money, against Jeff Hurd and Jeff Crank, both of whom won their primaries, as well as Gabe Evans, as I say. And he could have very well deprived President Trump of the votes that he needs in the House of Representatives to pass his agenda, because it's ridiculous.
They did win. Gabe Evans did win.
They won.
Can
they won.
Dave Williams take any type of credit for that?
No, because Crank and Hurd and Gabe have all said they tried to destroy us pre-primary. Okay. And they gave us no help at all when we won our primaries. And that's true. Actually, I know, and I'm sure you know, that the House Republicans had to step in and support Gabe with lots of money so that he could win. And because what they're doing at the party level is they have this purity test. They also sent out, Gabe Evans won his, and they're also such hypocrites. Gabe Evans won his race in his county, rather in his district, by 63% over Janet Josie, who's the one who the party then endorsed. So they're complete hypocrites about how they will endorse the party, the winner of the meeting, the county meeting. They're complete hypocrites. They're not doing
Joy,
that. They're just doing what they feel like doing.
I appreciate your time. We're just up against a break here. You can follow Joy Overbeck and her writing at RockyMountainVoice.com, RockyMountainVoice.com. We'll continue this conversation between now and whoever they choose in March You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, the Colorado Republican Civil War is ramping up, and we're going to have both sides on. Great to hear from Hugo and Joy. Thank you so much for taking time to join us. Plus, we talked with Dave Flaherty as to whether or not pollsters should be sued. There's a lot to talk about, so if you missed any of it, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. What a show. Glad to be back with you all.
So much fun.
You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
Yes, we are Denver's talk leader. This is where problems get solved and we create some too. News Talk 710 KNUS.